reminding ourselves yet again that another week has gone by. There may have been occasions where my precepts were broken, where my will, power, where my wisdom, where my concentration, where my virtue was insufficient to keep in check, to keep control of my five senses, where I gave way to desire, to aversion and delusion, and where my precepts might have been broken. So, reminding ourselves of this fact, and in the hope and determination that may this be the last time I have to observe the five precepts, may these precepts be part of the very fabric of who I am. May the virtue that I today have to observe become part of me, become part of my conscience. With that hope and wish and determination in mind, it is now time to observe the five precepts. In order to do so, I ask you all once again to recite the Namaskara 3 times and all together. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saranagamaṇaṃ sampunnaṃ, Pānāti pātā veramani, Sikkhapaḍaṃ samadhiyāmi, Adinādāna veramani, Sikkhapaḍaṃ samadhiyāmi, Kāmesu micchāchārā veramani, Sikkhapaḍaṃ samadhiyāmi, Musāvādā veramani, Sikkhapaḍaṃ samadhiyāmi, Surameraya majjapamā daṭṭhānā veramani, Sikkhapaḍaṃ samadhiyāmi, Tisaranena saddhiṃ pañcasīlaṃ dhammaṃ sādhukaṃ surakkitaṃ katva appamādena sampādeta. Okay, may all be seated. Also, prior to us commencing, Let us remind ourselves that in our infinite long journey in samsara, there have been many beings who will have come to our help, support and assistance. Some of them may still be with us, others, our ancestors, our forefathers, those who have predeceased us. And among those who have predeceased us, there may be devas, brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead. It is now time for us to invite them to join us. Among those who have predeceased us, our ancestors, those who helped us, assisted us, supported us in any way, shape or form, there may be some who have been born in the woeful plains due to the unmeritorious deeds that they might have committed, and perhaps some of them did so on our behalf, so it is our duty to invite them to join us. May they join us and witness this meritorious deed. May through the power of the merits that they can acquire, by witnessing this meritorious deed, they be able to redeem themselves from those woeful plains. For all beings who have been born in the blissful plane, may all those beings be able to rejoice in these merits, listen to this sermon, comprehend the Dhamma, the doctrine that is entailed within these sermons, and may they be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So as I now make this invitation, I invite you all to extend this invitation in your hearts and in your minds out to all the devas, brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead. In the 10,000 world systems there are, may they all join us. May they all listen to these sermons, witness this meritorious deed, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Samanta Chakvalesu Atra Gacchantu Devata Sadhammang Munirajasansa Sunantu Sagga Mokkadang Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta. And also before we commence, let us remind ourselves that although today we have received the gift of Dhamma, and perhaps the Dhamma has changed our lives beyond recognition, just think to yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, about the transformation the gift of Dhamma has had on your lives. However, throughout our infinitely long journey in samsara, we have not always had this privilege. In fact, virtually all our associations may have been with ignoble and immoral people, whose associations defiled our minds with raga, dvesha, moha, desire, aversion and delusion, and having been blinded with avidya and tanha, ignorance and attachment, we may have offended and abused and slandered, desecrated the Aryas, the noble ones, the Samma Sambuddhas, Pacceka Buddhas, Arahata Buddhas, Anagami, Sakurdagami, Sotapannas, be they on the path or having attained the fruits, as well as the Buddha's ministry, the Sambuddha Shasana. For all those misdeeds, harsh words and thoughts of desecration, abuse and slander that we might have directed towards the noble ones and the Buddha's ministry, the demerit that might have been acquired today hinder and block our progress in the Dhamma. So, prior to us commencing, let us all take a moment to seek forgiveness from the noble ones, as well as the Buddha's ministry, for any words or actions or thoughts of abuse, slander or misdeed that we might have directed towards them. And finally, let us all make a firm resolve that through the course of this very sermon, if there are any gaps in our understanding that are required to be fulfilled before you can reach the state of Sotapanna, may through the course of this sermon you be able to fulfill those gaps. And if there are any of you who have already attained that stage, may through the course of this sermon you be able to fulfill the subsequent stages and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So, with that firm resolve and determination in mind, I invite you all to prepare yourselves to listen to this sermon. Okay. This is good. I like that we are growing fewer in number. It's a good thing. Because it means you have taken on board the key doctrine that we have to deliver. And then from that point forward, it's a case of practicing it. Like I say, you just need the 20%. The remaining 80 is not something that I can do for you. It's not something that the Buddha can do for you. It's something that you have to do unto yourselves. It's every man and woman for themselves. So this is something that we have to practice day and night. It's not a nice to do thing that we can do once in a while in the hope that something might happen. Let's just keep practicing. Who knows when? It'll just, when it comes, it can't be like that. You have to have a very specific direction. And to have a very specific direction, you need to have a very specific goal in mind. So you need to know where you're heading. If I were to ask you, what do you think Nibbana is? What might your responses be? You've been listening to sermons for a while now, so you should have some pre-prepared responses to this. What is Nibbana? So we have the luxury of having few here today, so you can have a conversation with me when it's appropriate. So I'm asking you a question then. What is Nibbana? What is Nibbana to you, madam? Very good. What is Nibbana to you, madam? Okay. And to you, sir? Okay. How about you, Buddha? What is Nibbana to you? Have you heard that word before? How old are you? 8. Wow. At the age of 8, you've already heard what Nibbana is. You're coming along to sermons. Wow. That's really something, isn't it? I wasn't like that at the age of 8. I was a bundle of mischief. That's what I was at the age of 8. A bundle of mischief. I was no good. Wherever I was, you should be running the opposite direction. That's what I was like at the age of 8. Well, look at him. How about you, Buddha? What's Nibbana to you? Freedom from mental suffering. Okay. Dua? What's Nibbana to you? I'll give you a moment to think. How about you, Dua? In other words, why are you here? Ami said so? Whoever, I don't know. I'm not implying anything, I'm just saying, is that why you're here? Is that because your mother sent here? Your father asked you to be here? Or your uncle, your aunt, or a friend asked you to be here? So we all have some answers to what Nibbana is. At least you have something in mind. Perhaps you're not able to express that into words. And that's fine, that's okay. You don't all have to be eloquent preachers of Nibbana. Because this is something that we do unto ourselves. And on that path, sometimes we have the opportunity to give that gift to somebody else. The gift of giving is there in the Buddha's ministry as well. The gift of giving. This is the gift that excels all gifts. Once you've given this gift, do you need another gift? No, you don't need another gift after you receive this gift. Why do we need gifts? Absolutely, madam. To be happy. Isn't that what a gift gives you? When someone gives you a gift, how do you feel? How do you feel with that? Excited, yes, absolutely. Excited and happy, that's how a gift makes us feel. But what if there's one gift? Once you've received that gift, then you've gone to the ultimate happiness. There's no other gift in this world that can make you happier. The gift that is second to none. The best gift there is. Now where do we find that Santa Claus? Did Santa Claus bring you presents this time round? At our household we used to have Santa. So when I was in the UK, we had Santa. So Santa brought me gifts. Not because I was a Christian, but it was more a cultural thing than a religious practice for us. Everyone celebrated Christmas, so we had a Christmas tree at home. Is that a sin? Is that a bad thing to do for a Buddhist, to have a Christmas tree at home? No, what's wrong with that? We had Christmas lights and baubles hung on the trees and the star at the top. Then we had Christmas presents by the tree. So we had all that. That was just a cultural celebration. Once when you're somewhere, you just have to be like the rest of them, right? That's how you mix in. Otherwise, you stand out like the odd clown. No one wants to be like that. We don't want to be like that. We just want to mix with everybody. But Nibbana is something that we do internally, not externally. It's not an outwardly expression. How do you know if someone's on the path to Nibbana? Do they have long hair? What are you doing, sir? Why have you cut your hair? You should have long hair if you're on the path to Nibbana. What color do they dress if they're on the path to Nibbana? Do they wear spectacles or do they not wear specs? How fast do they walk if someone's on the path to Nibbana? Really slowly, right? No, it's not an outwardly expression. It's a wholly, entirely internal transformation. Transformation of what? Your organs? Do they switch places? Your heart goes to where your tummy is and your tummy goes to where your heart is? Some people are like that anyway. It's a transformation of your mindset, isn't it? It's how you think. It's your perspective on how you look at things. This is why when a lot of time I speak to atheists, people who don't believe in any religion, as well as those who do believe in religion but not necessarily Buddhist philosophy, I seldom speak to them about next birth, previous births, hells and heavens, because a lot of that people have to accept by faith. I don't have supernatural powers to give you evidence that there is life after this, or what your life was like before this. Perhaps in the time of the great elders like Moggallana and the Buddha, when the great elders were around and they had supernormal powers, they were able to perform miracles. In front of you, it would be like watching a video, like you would be watching later on today. In front of your eyes, you could see what your previous birth was like. Based on your karma, you would be able to see what your next birth is going to be like. Plenty of times the Buddha invited his listeners and he performed miracles where you were able to see what the heavens were like. How the gods enjoyed celestial pleasures as much as how the beings in the four great hells had to suffer where they were. But alas, we are not capable of doing that today. But thankfully, that is not how the Buddha said we have to convince people of his philosophy. That's not how. It's not a miracle that requires anyone to believe in. It's a transformation that is based on a logical understanding. It's very extremely logical. And as I have shared with you many a time, I was quite dubious about Buddhist philosophy. I didn't believe in any of these things that I just talked to you about, because I was not prepared to accept things that people said just because. I was always a questioner, like you all should be. Never be a follower, what should you always be? A questioner, absolutely. Be a student, never be a follower. Because a student always questions, including their teacher. If you're a student, you will question your teacher. If you're a follower, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags, fool sir. Who says that? Baba, black, sheep. Do you want to be a sheep? No, this Dhamma is not for sheep. It's for intelligent human beings. Intelligent sentient beings, like you are. So, when posed with the question, what does Nibbana mean to all of you? You should have an answer. It's okay if you don't, but you should be prepared to have an answer. Because it's a destination. Nibbana is a destination. Unlike success. What do people say? Success is a destination? What do people say? Success is a journey, not a destination. Have you not heard that before? It's a very cliche saying, but success is a journey, not a destination. Now you must have heard that many a time by now. Why is success a journey and not a destination? What is the nature of a journey? You always have to keep moving on. Were you here yesterday? Yes? You remember the movie? The video clip you watched? How that free man's come and say, you have to keep moving on. Do we have that as well? Okay. Oh, you're in for a treat today. When you're on a journey, you have to keep moving on constantly, because that's the nature of a journey. When you have a destination, then you stop. You no longer have to move. But when you're on this journey, you need to know when you've arrived at your destination so you can stop. Otherwise, you're just going to keep going, not knowing where you're going, without direction. Then you're just going to keep moving, thinking you're going somewhere, but really not knowing where you're going. So it's great that you say raga ke, dvesha ke, moha ke, nibbana. That's good. That's really good. You know, the way I look at Nibbana now is, I think for myself, I've simplified it even further. For me. And it's perfectly fine if you continue to think of it as being raga ke, dvesha ke, moha ke. There's nothing wrong with that. In other words, it's to put it into English, extinguishing of desire, aversion and delusion. These are the cankers that keep us bound to samsara. If you're desirous about something, if you have an aversion about something, or against something, this is conflict, right? And then delusion. If you're in these 3 states of mind, then you're still stuck in samsara. Based on the Dhamma that I've been reflecting lately, and the sermons that Guru Swamin once has been given, that I will know I have arrived at Nibbana is the day that I feel no vexation. That day, when I don't feel vexed about anything. Absolutely anything. Yesterday I was, I think, having a tea or something in the evening. And because now I'm constantly looking at my mind, how I react to the outside world and when things happen to me. I was someone offered me a tea and I was going to take it after having done my pratyaviksha. And then, as I was lifting my arm up with this mug to drink it, my arm got stuck. That was because a part of my robe, there was a bit hanging off my robe, and I had accidentally sat on that. So as I was trying to pull my arm, I couldn't. At that moment, I didn't like that. That fine moment where I was trying to pull my arm up, but my arm got stuck. I was like, what's going on here? I was so ashamed. I was so ashamed. And then I began to think, what if one day my arm stops working? What's that going to do to me then? Today at least I can adjust myself and pull my arm up and do what it is that I want to do. But what if that day, well, it's not what if, it's more a when. When that day, comes, where I can't move my arms and my limbs according to my wishes. where I can't stand up or sit down according to my wishes, where I can't speak, I open my mouth to talk, but words don't come out. You know when you have a really sore throat? Have you experienced that? And how vexing that is? How annoying that is? You have a meeting later on in the evening, or later on in the day, or say an important business meeting tomorrow, and you have a really bad sore throat. And you can't speak because the words just don't come out. Have you been in that situation? Yes, Buddha? Have you felt that? Yes? That really upsets you, doesn't it? When that happens to you, you begin to feel uneasy, really unsettled, unrelaxed. It's so frustrating. See, little things in life. You wake up in the morning getting ready to go to work. You start buttoning your shirt and one button comes off. Annoying or not? So annoying. You're running to catch the bus and you just miss it by, what do they say? Kesgas. Our Sinhala speakers will know what I just said there. You just miss it. How does that make you feel? When you thought, I was going to get on that, but the bus pulled off and you couldn't get on the bus. You know, those feelings that we feel at that time, those sentiments that come rushing into our minds at that time, have we still not outsourced our happiness? We've outsourced our happiness. You get to decide how I feel. You get to decide when I'm happy and when I'm upset. And we seem to be okay with that. This transformation that we are going through, ladies and gentlemen, is about not being okay with that. I am not happy that you, madam, can decide when I'm happy and when I'm not. And neither should you be, that I get to decide that. You have to become independent. Where you don't hand over the keys to your house to me, the house of happiness. Don't just hand it over to any old stranger. You don't know what they might do. They might just walk in. Have you ever done that? Hand your keys of your house to a stranger? What are you going to expect? You'd never do that. Then why do you do that with the house of happiness? This is why, particularly now, earlier sermons, I used to always talk to you about happiness. What does happiness mean to all of you? And how this is the purpose of our lives and how it should be the purpose of our lives. Till when? Forever. Forever. This is why I came into this planet. This is why I was born a human. This is why I keep going through in samsara. The pursuit of happiness. It's just, we've been going round and round and round, knocking on the wrong doors and going down the wrong rabbit hole. That's what happened to us. So the day that comes when I'm no longer vexing, there's nothing in this world that can vex me. Where you can say whatever you like to me, sir, and I don't feel a tinge of animosity, where I don't feel a modicum of anger, resentment, or anything like that, then I'll know I'll have achieved my purpose. I'll know I'm there. When you're at your workplace, you have a desk booked, so you know exactly where you're going to be sitting, or you have an office, and you work into your office, or you walk into your workplace, and someone's taken your office, someone's on your seat, someone's working on your computer. How about those? How do you feel when you see that? Not so good. But when the day comes where that's okay, and there really is nothing really about that, you just feel perfectly okay with that. That's when you will know you'll have attained Nibbana. In other words, raga ke, dvesha ke, moha ke, absolutely. But another way of looking at it is ultimate happiness. Zero vexing. Zero vexation. Ultimate happiness and zero vexation. Are they two different things or one and the same? It's one and the same. Zero vexation, that's where we are heading. So whatever amount you're vexing by now, compare that to what you were like some weeks ago, a few months ago, maybe a year or two ago. And that's something you have to do regularly. Because that's going to give you a real thrust to keep moving forward. These two things you have to do. Anulomak Shanti and Samyak Niyame. Both. You have to become frustrated about Ashwada, pleasure, about the world, about Rupa Shabda Gandha Rasa Sparsha, where you've continuously in your lives, this is all we've known, taken refuge. We've sought refuge in Rupa Shabda Gandha Rasa Sparsha. Sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. This is what we continue to seek refuge in. But now we become frustrated in them. What is frustrated? What do I mean by frustration here? The singular term I would express would be kalakiri. That is not, I don't like it at all. To hell with rights. That's not the feeling I'm talking about, because frustration can have lots of different connotations. In the pursuit of happiness. Sights can no longer bring me pleasure. Let it be. Let it be. I'm not saying get rid of it. Just let it be. Imagine you walk into this room and there are 3 people in this room as you walk in. One's your best friend. The other, your worst enemy. And the third, a stranger. Would you feel the same about these 3 people? No, of course not. That's why you call one your best friend. This is why you call another your worst enemy. That's why you don't feel the same about them. How about if you were able to look at them in the same way? Treat them the same way. Because when you say someone's my best friend, you, ladies and gentlemen, have just handed over your keys. You have just outsourced your happiness. When you just hand over that, when you promote someone, hey, mate, I'm going to promote you to best friend. What are you also handing them over? The keys to your happiness. When you demote someone from friend to enemy, what are you also still doing? Again, handing over keys to your house of happiness. You can do what you like. Walk in, do what you like. To your enemy? Seriously? Handing over your keys? That's bad. I don't know where you took that advice from. Went to the wrong class. That's bad. That's really bad advice. But a stranger is someone you don't have a close association with, or you don't have any resentments against either. It's just another person. So the day you can walk into this room, and we'll have pre-arranged for this to happen, we'll invite your best friend, we'll invite your worst enemy, and we'll invite a stranger. And then you'll have a seat next to each of them. So there'll be 6 chairs in the room, 3 on which they're sat, and 3 next to them, and you have a choice as to where you want to sit. The day you walk in and say, Swaminatha, wherever. Doesn't matter, wherever. You say, and I'll go take that seat. The day you can say that, you'll have gone a long way on that journey. But if till today you walk into this room and you look for your favorite chumps, oh, where would I like to sit today? Oh, here's that guy who I always have that chat with on the bus. Let me go and sit next to him. Here's my pal. Let me go and sit next to her. There's my mate from school. Let me go and sit next to her. What are we looking for? Happiness, but in the wrong place. Because the world is still vexing you. And when the world is vexing you, you're not happy with that. You're looking for happiness. You're trying to change the world to your liking. This is where we went wrong, right from the beginning. So, really, if Nibbana is where you want to be heading, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely make sure you know where you're going. Absolutely make sure that you have your goal defined. And whether you call it ragake, dveshake, mohake, or you call it zero vexation, they're both right. To me, zero vexation is something that I can constantly check every day. If I hear a noise coming from behind, do I still feel I need to turn my head round to look at it? See, there you can check your vexation. You walk into a room and someone's whispering something, or someone's having a chat with another person, and you hear your name. They're not calling you, they're just talking among themselves. Do you feel the urge to turn your head round and say, why are you talking about me? See, check these things. Check them out at home. In fact, help out your parents, help out your children. Mother and father, when you're at home, just, you see your child walking in, say, Lokaputa walking in, Podiputa walking in, Mamma and Tati, they can start talking. Today Jodiputa said this, right? And just start whispering something. Just loud enough so that he or she can hear you say that. And see how they respond. Do they come running to you and go, Ammi, what did you say about me? Tati, why did you just say my name? And then what should you be saying? Attachment is the cause of all suffering. But why are you vexing? You failed the test. That was just a test, and you failed it. And then children can do the same with their parents. But be careful, they might get really annoyed. Careful, because they still feed you, so you don't want to upset them too much. But this is something you can try out practically at home. If you remember last week, I was talking about the number line. Do you remember? For those of you who came along last week. So, if you've been listening to sermons up until now, I think I'll sound like a broken record if I say to you one more time, there is no pleasure to be had in sights, sounds, smells, tastes and touch. Well, there you go. I've just sounded like a broken record. So I've just said it again. So there is absolutely no pleasure in that flower out there. Anyone seen a pretty girl? No? Are you not one, though? Who's seen a beautiful flower? Ever heard a beautiful song? Or a yummy piece of cake? Ever had one? Had a yummy piece of cake? A delicious chicken biryani? Now we are talking. I can hear tummies rumbling from here. Again, tests at home. Test it out. Walk up to your fridge. Open your fridge door. You're not hungry. Open your fridge door and see if you have an urge to throw your arm out and grab something and put it into your mouth. Check yourself. Your home's your lab. Your workplace is your lab. Your commute to work is your lab. Your playground is your lab. Time you spend with your friends, that's your lab. The time you go and spend with your relations. The New Year's coming around, right? You're going to be visiting your neighbors, your relations. That's going to be your lab. Because I'll guarantee not everyone's going to say something you like to hear. Most of them will, but some of them might pass some hints. You know what neighbors are like, what relations are like, right? They'll pass you hints. Sleek hints. How are you going to respond to them? This is the time to go into those labs. To check yourself. Because you've been listening to sermons for some time now. You've taken the 20%, then 80% practice has to happen. So, on the number line we spoke about last week, we all agreed that there's no ashwada or pleasure to be found in sight, sound, smells, taste and touch. I think there are a few new faces. Can you put your arms up if you weren't here last week or the week before? Nobody? You're all here? Okay, you're all here then. I thought I'd seen a few new faces. So if you're all here last week then don't be shy then. Okay. Don't be shy. Okay, before I say that, answer this for me. There are two types of questions in this world. There are good questions and there are stupid questions. What's a stupid question? Okay. Any other responses? What's a stupid question? Okay? You're very intelligent. You're thinking far ahead than I am. Yes, Putta? Ooh, interesting. You're thinking a lot far ahead than I am. Here's what a stupid question is for me. The question that you don't ask. You know, because some people come and say, Swaminas, I have a really stupid question. Would you mind if I asked it? It's only a stupid question until you ask it, madam. Just ask. After you've asked, it's no longer a stupid question. Because the thing is, sometimes you don't know the gravity of the question that you ask. Sometimes you might think this is a really stupid, a really silly question. But you might think that might be the case. But then the person who's going to be answering might see a lot of depth in that question. And perhaps you asked question X, but in asking that question, the person that's responding to you realizes that, oh, you haven't understood one bit. Now I'm going to answer Y, the question you should have asked. So because you asked question X, you're going to receive the answer to question Y, which is the question you should have asked. And had you asked that question, then you wouldn't have asked question X. So is it not good that you asked question X then? You're all the better for having asked that question. So there's only one stupid question, and that is the question that you don't ask. So if you have a question, ask. If you have a question, ask. And likewise, there's only one answer, that's a wrong answer. When given the opportunity, and if you don't give an answer, that is the wrong answer. Because when you don't give an answer, then to the person that's asking the question, they can make an assumption. What assumption might that be? Oh, you have no questions. You understood it all. So, thank you all for listening, and have a nice day. You've just missed an opportunity to clarify something that you might have not understood. Maybe it was just one more explanation that you required. Maybe you'd just been listening to 10 examples and the 11th was what was going to cut it for you. And that was when the penny was going to drop, the 11th example. But you said at the end of 10, perhaps I should not be asking another question. Maybe I should just pretend I have understood because, no one else in the room is putting their arms up. So I'm just going to look like an idiot if I put my arm up. Who's missing out? All the other idiots in the room? No, the idiot that didn't put their arm up. By the way, I'm not saying anyone's an idiot. I'm just saying this is how you ought to think. I've done that plenty of times in my life and made that mistake. I had questions but I didn't ask. I didn't put my arm up. And then one thing that would have made sense to me, I missed it. And then I had to wait a long time before another opportunity came my way. So particularly when we have the opportunity and given the chance, if you have questions, please ask. Okay? So the reason I asked if you were here last week or the week before that was because, remember we talked about what did we call this? What did we call this? Toodle-doo. You seen toodle-doos? Yes. So we nicknamed a beetle leaf. We called it the toodle-doo. I don't know. I was quite pleased that we came up with that example because it's made a lot of sense to me. Because every day I try to simplify the message of Nibbana. I try to simplify this message that I'm trying to give so that I don't have to speak volumes when I come across somebody. Guru Swami once says, you get into a lift, level 5, by the time you hit ground floor, you should be able to explain Nibbana to somebody. So really, we shouldn't need a 3-hour long sermon. Right? You shouldn't. What if how long are we sure about our lives? How certain are our lives? All we are certain of is this moment. So I know this moment, you're here, you're alive, you're breathing, and you have the opportunity to attain Nibbana. I can't guarantee that you're going to be here by the end of this sermon. So therefore, this message has to become succinct. Short and sweet. Not lengthy, laborious and long. So this is something you have to practice with your friends as well, because there may be friends, and particularly as I say, you're going to be visiting your friends, your relations, right? So you have the opportunity now to make a transformation in their lives. You might come across people that you are not on the best of terms with, but still you decide to go and meet them, and that's a great thing to do. Putting aside all differences, right? Let's just water under the bridge. New year, let's just move on, right? I'm sure there'll be people among you who've made that determination. I'm going to do that in the new year. People who we didn't really get along with because of something they said, something we said that they took in the wrong way, right? But that grudge has been festering for a long time. In the new year, I'm just going to put it all under, it's just going to be water under the bridge, and now we're just going to move on. So, when you get that opportunity, there may be samsaric debts that have to be reconciled. Now you have an opportunity. So when you go visiting, you need to have this message of Nibbana quite succinctly formed. You should be able to talk about Nibbana, explain Nibbana using a toodle-do. A betel leaf. A lot of monks at our monastery, because I spend a lot of time talking to our young novice monks, asking them, Swaminatha, how's your practice now? Where are you on the path to Nibbana? This really worked with them. The first time I spoke about this was in this room. Talking to you, because of our collected merit is the only reason I can think of it. This came to mind. So thank you. We started to look for pleasure or happiness in the betel leaf. Remember? If you've never seen a betel leaf ever in your life before, and I say, betel leaf, now you're all going to think, what's that? You're going to start to question, what is that? What? Betel leaf. Betel what? Betel leaf. And then the next question is going to be, what? What's it like? What does it look like? So then I show you. Here's what a betel leaf looks like. Now you've seen what it looks like, but have you smelt it? Have you touched it? Have you heard what it sounds like when I crush it by your ear? No. You haven't tasted it. You haven't experienced it through any other means. The only way you know what a betel leaf now is you've seen it. So you know what the sight of a betel leaf is like. At the point that I show this to you, do you not feel a moment of pleasure? Because pleasure was in the leaf, right? No. Because you were relieved of vexation. The vexation of what does it look like? Always looking, always seeking, always searching. And the moment I showed this to you, that's it. Problem solved. You've seen it. So we continued that example, and I said, okay, so next you're going to ask me, what does it smell like? Well, I've already given you pleasure. Why are you asking it from me again? And so through that process, we proved that pleasure does not exist in the betel leaf. Now, let's say, for all of you here, I pass this leaf around, and you've all seen it, you are all able to touch it and smell it and taste it, right? So you've experienced this leaf in all the 5 different ways that you're capable of. You all leave, and then tomorrow a new group comes along, new faces. And then I sit them all down, they've never seen a betel leaf in their lives, and ask them, do you know betel leaf? And again they're going to ask me, betel what? Betel leaf. Then they're going to ask me, what does that look like? And then I'm going to show them the same leaf, exactly the same leaf. I'm not going to let you leave with this, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to show this exact leaf tomorrow to that new group. And as the moment I show this to them, aren't they going to feel a moment of pleasure? A moment of gratification? How could I have done that if when you were here the day before, you took all the pleasure there was in this leaf with you when you left? If when you left, you took all the pleasure there was in the leaf, then I don't have any pleasure left in this leaf to give to the group that comes along tomorrow. For them, I have to use another leaf then, shouldn't I? But should I have to? No. Why? Because pleasure is not in the leaf. Gratification is not in the leaf. gratification then is the outcome of a process. It's not a characteristic of an object. It's the outcome of a process. What is the process? First, your drushti. You have to take on a ditti, a view that something is pleasurable. That view has to come in. Where does that come from? Where does your drushti come from? From? Asatpurushas. Yes. Association with ignoble, immoral people. Because it's them that give you this news alert. Hey, we've just found something that's pleasurable. We've all experienced pleasure in samsara, true. But when we came into this world, coming out of your mother's womb, today you might all like chocolate eclairs. But coming out of the mother's womb, did you know that it was yummy? Did you like red flowers when you came into this world? No. But someone brought you into that view. Someone implanted that view in your mind. This is why, just the other day, I think I had 2 young children, 14 years of age. They came to discuss the Dhamma with me. So I was helping them understand this. And I was asking them, you've both grown up to like the color blue, right? And this can, you can think about this as well. There are young boys and 2 young girls in the room as well. Boys will grow up learning to like the color blue. Girls will typically grow up learning to like the color pink. But when they came into this world, there was no favorite color. It's not part of the DNA for a girl to like pink. It's not part of a boy's DNA to like blue. It's not something you come into this world with. It's purely and completely a view that gets implanted. So when a young boy is growing up in a family, what parents do is typically they paint the color blue, the walls blue, blue curtains, blue everything, blue clothes, blue socks, blue toys, right? The cot's blue, everything's blue. And then this child grows up in a sea of blue. And if it's a girl, typically it's pink. And then they grow up in a world of pink. Why do you think girls like dolls? That is so stereotypical. Because it's wrong to say that girls like dolls. The view that pleasure exists in dolls were implanted in girls from a very young age. And for young boys, it was toy cars and guns and superheroes, figures. This is what happened with boys. Typically. There may be differences in some places, but typically that's what happens. But if you bring up a boy from a very young age, giving him dolls as toys, he's going to grow up playing with dolls. He doesn't even like the sound of me saying that. That's how much that view is cemented in his mind. There's an example. Even the sound of it. Buddha, would you like a doll? Phew. I need to go and wash my ears. And you go wash your mouth. How dare you say something like that? This is all because of views that were implanted in our minds. They've done lots of experiments. Scientists have done lots of experiments with this. Child psychology. So my wife, as a lay person, used to be a primary teacher. So she did a lot of child psychology and studied a lot about that. And so as we started to listen to the Dhamma, she was able to relate to that to some examples and experiences that she'd learnt in her training and so on and so forth. And we used to discuss these things. So this has been proved. So your upbringing, during your formative ages, these views were implanted in all of us. Whether you're a Catholic or a Muslim or a Buddhist, where do you pick these things up from? Views. Sometimes you can grow up to become an extreme Buddhist. Extreme Buddhist. Sometimes you can grow up to become an extreme Christian. an extreme Muslim, extremely devoted to your beliefs that you will go to any lengths to protect it. But you didn't come into this world with your religion printed on your backside or your forehead. Right? This was a view that was given to us when we came into this world. Puta, you are a Buddhist. So now behave like one. That's what we learnt. Puta, you are a Christian, so behave like one. Here's what good Christians do. Here's what good Muslims do. Here's what good Hindus do, so now go and do it. But we never questioned. Just because we were taught something, we just continued to do it. And then continued and continued until it became part and parcel of who we are. Became part of our identity. And now what we are trying to do on our path to Nibbana is to shed aside those identities. Because we are all trying to become a somebody or a nobody. We're trying to become a nobody. What identity does a nobody have? Nothing. And nobody doesn't have an identity. Yes, he'll have an identity card. That's not what I'm talking about. Hopefully you understand, right? If you meet an arahant on the way, he'll probably have an identity card. But that's not what I'm talking about. There is nothing he holds on to. And in the video you'll be able to watch later on. I'll explain the story after you watched it. It's about a free man. About how someone can become free. And how when you're not free, you hold on to a certain identity. This is who I am. I'm not willing to change. Who has to change? You have to change. You have to accept who I am. I am who I am. And I'm perfectly fine with that. And the world has to be at peace with who I am. I'm not going to change. You change. And tell me when you've done it. But on the path to becoming a nobody, we have to shed all these somebodies. We have to shed all these identities. So, coming back to the betel leaf. You have to be able to explain Nibbana in a betel leaf. So once you've done that, now you can substitute anything you like to this betel leaf. Right? This could be a cake. What kind of cake can it only be? Can it only be a strawberry cake? What about chocolate cake? Yes. What about, I don't know, what other cake do you like? Vanilla cake. Can it not be a vanilla cake? It can be absolutely anything. Once you've proved, once you have been convinced that there is no pleasure to be found in sights and sounds and smells and taste and touch. Can you give me one more thing that you can get from this leaf? Something that's not a sight, not a sound, not a smell, not a taste, and not touch. What else can you get from this leaf? What else? Can you get anything else from this Buddha? No, because that is all you can experience from this leaf. Can you see me holding an apple? Why not? How do you know? I'm telling you it's there. How do you know there's no apple here? Absolutely. So we come to the conclusion that something doesn't exist when we can't see it, we can't hear it, we can't smell it, we can't taste it, and we can't touch it. Does that always mean that it does not exist? I grew up thinking, Devas? Who are they? Demons? Spirits? Hell? Heaven? Yeah, right. That's how I grew up. Because all I thought was, if I can't see it, then it doesn't exist. But we don't have a problem with the things that we can't see. Can you name one thing you're attached to that you can't see? Or you can't smell, you can't touch, you can't sense? Name one thing. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't touch it, you can't smell, you can't taste it, and you can't even think about it in your mind. Because otherwise you might come up with something like love. Because love you can't see, you can't smell, you can't taste, you can't hear, you can't touch. But you can still think about it, right? It's a concept. Love is a concept, right? These are your 6 faculties. Your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. Through your 6 faculties, You receive, you perceive the outside world, but the outside world can only bring you sight, sound, smells, taste, touch, and thoughts. How can you prove to someone that you love them? There's a challenge. You go and say to someone, I love you. Prove it. How do you prove that you love somebody? Oh, these are problems you should have as lay people. I used to have them, not anymore. Darling, I love you. Prove it. How do you prove that you love somebody? What color does love look like? What color is love? Red, right? What's the color of love? Red. Do you see how much people vex? Why do you think people had to give love a color? Think about this. Why do you think people had to give love a color? When I say beetle leaf, why do you want to know what it looks like? Is that not because you're vexing? You're in a state of vexation. You're mentally suffering. What? What does it look like? Okay, here. Whew, thank goodness. I can see. Thank goodness it's got color. It's a sight that I can look at. Now I know what it looks like. Now I know what a beetle leaf is. Okay, I love you. Now prove it. Aren't you vexing? Someone says, I love you. Prove it. I'm not sure. Now I'm vexed. Because you can't transfer a thought into someone else's head, can you? Into someone else's mind. You can't transfer a thought. You can speak of it, but you don't know if they're going to receive what's in your mind. So the only way you can express that is through sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. Therefore, when you're vexed, does she really love me? Prove it. Now, what's the best way to do it? Come up with a color. Come up with a sight. A rupa. This is the rupa for love. Now I know you love me. You've just shown me the color red. Think about this, right? A guy is going out with a girl. Okay? So, whenever he gets a chance, he gives her a bunch of roses. And what color do they have to be? Of course, no other color. Because red is the color of love. Yes, absolutely. Even he knows. How do you know anyway? Red is the color of love. So it has to be red. Okay? So this guy is giving this girl red roses. Now, the other day, this girl, she's walking on the road and she sees her boyfriend at a florist, which is a shop where they sell flowers. And there's another girl that just happened to walk into that shop. Because what else is another sight or another rupa for love? One is red, the color, but what else? Objects? Flowers. How is he coming up with all these answers? The adults are having trouble, but he's doing brilliantly. Okay, we'll see. Right, so flowers are a symbol of love, aren't they? And particularly red roses. This is commercialism. It's all in here. Okay, if you're intelligent enough, you'll see a lot of gaps will start filling for you. You'll start to see all the connections. How the world's making a living off of you. How the world makes a living off of you. It's all consumers and suppliers at the end of the day. So when someone wants to express love and you're not sure, therefore there's a state of vexation. I'm not sure. You say you love me, but you're looking at the other girl as well. Prove it. So it has to be flowers, and they have to be red. So this girl who's going out with this guy, she receives red flowers once a week, once a month, and so on, right? Now she's walking down the road, she sees her boyfriend at the florist. Another girl just randomly walks into the store. So she's looking for flowers. Just because she can't reach that far, she taps the guy on the back or says, "Excuse me, do you mind just passing those flowers on to me?" Uh-oh. They just happen to be red roses. Now this girl, standing from afar, sees this. They're red roses. What happens? Problem. No. War. All hell just broke loose. Why? Because now love has been given a color. Objects have been associated with love. A color has been associated with love. How so? Consumerism. Because the world wants to make a living off of you. When you came into this world, out of your mother's womb, what color did you think love was? You didn't know that. But you learnt it. What food item do you give to the person you love? Come on, you know this. Absolutely. Oh God. Who said that? Did you say that, Buddha? Oh, you said that, right? Okay. Chocolates. See, at a really young age. I'm sure Ammi and Tati didn't speak to them about that. Oh, they... Okay. Asatpurusha Sayone. That's what it is. Association with ignoble people. Implanting these views about this is, all these associations. Love has to be red, love has to be flowers, red flowers, and love has to be chocolates. Now, if that same girl walking along the road sees this guy at the florist, okay, another girl just randomly walks into the shop, but he says, "Can you get me those flowers because I can't reach them?" And he picks something else, either by mistake or because she actually asked for a different flower, not a red rose. I don't know what else there are. White lilies. Now at least he can explain that situation. But if it's a red rose, there's no explanation. That's one step too far. Why? It was a red rose. So why is red, why are roses, why are chocolates all associated with love? Why? Vexation. Because when you say to somebody, "I love you," now they're vexing. Prove it. But I can't prove it to you because I can't give this thought that's in my mind. There's no other way I can make a clone of this and plant it in your mind. I can't do that. So the only way I can do that is, you have 5 senses, and I have to transfer this message to you through your 5 senses. These are the peripherals that you have attached to your body. The scanners, if you like the scanners you have attached to your computer. You have a photo and you need to get an image of that into your computer. What can you do? Go and stick the photo on your screen? Is that going to do any good? No, you have to stick it to the scanner. Likewise, you have 5 scanners through which you scan this world. So when you say, "I love you," and they say, "Prove it," well, you have to give them a sight, or a sound, or a smell, or a taste, or a touch. Right? Why? Vexing. So what the world does then is, they come up with all these things. Because you're vexing, well, people can make a living off of you. When was the last time an Arahant went and gave a bunch of red roses to an Arahat Mehinin Mahansi? With all my heart I offer these to you. No, that doesn't happen because an Arahant doesn't vex. So there is no need to express those feelings. I mean, love itself is one that is based in vexation. But even if it was any other feeling, this is why I say, if you were a room of arahants and I say beetle, none of you are going to ask me, what? No, you're not going to ask me that. I'm going to ask you, have you seen beetle? You say no. But you're not going to ask me, oh please, would you show us? Please, could you show us what it looks like? You're never going to ask me that question. So what was man's greatest invention? Yes. Those questions. What, why, when, who, which, how. Because if not for those questions, how would you relieve yourself of vexation? You see a sight from afar, someone standing by you. You want to know what that is. What are you going to say? No, you don't have what? The word what has not been invented. What are you going to say? No, even that, this body action, what is that for? Relief from vexation. This body language, this sign where you turn the fingers of your palm upwards, right, in a curvely fashion. What is this for? It's to ask a question. Why was this invented? Because people are vexing. Peleno. And to seek relief from vexation, you have to come up with something. So this is why you have eyebrows, so you can express feelings. What if someone's talking to you and you're not giving the body language to them? When someone says something to surprise you, what do? Your eyebrows go up. What? When you're angry, you go like this. You frown. Someone's someone's speaking in a way that resembles anger, but their eyebrows or their forehead is not frowned. What are you going to be like? I'm not sure how you feel right now. Are you angry or not? Because you're expecting that body language and you're not receiving it. You can hear the sounds, but what else are you vexing for? The sight. That's not coming. Because when you're vexing, you try to seek relief from using all 5 senses. So aren't you lucky that you only have the 5? What if you had 10? You'd be vexing 10 times over when I say beetle leaf. Imagine you had a sensor that could pick up auras of all objects. Now I say this is what it looks like. I pass this around to you so you can smell it. You're allowed to put it on your tongue so you can taste it. You are able to touch it so you can feel it. You are allowed to crush this leaf by your ear so you can hear it. But you also have a 6th sense by which you can pick up the aura. It's on the back of your head. Now what do you have to do? You'll be vexing until I come and hold it behind your head. Would you or wouldn't you be? You would, wouldn't you? Yes. So imagine you had 10 senses then. 10 times over you'd be vexing over this. But once you understand that actually pleasure is not in the object, it's simply the outcome of a process. What's the process again? First it has to be, what comes first? The view. View has to be implanted. This person has to be impregnated with this view. This view has to be implanted, instilled in the mind. What's the view again? That sight, sound, smells, touch, they are pleasurable. They are pleasurable. A girl, there are beautiful girls in this world. That's a view. There are yummy cakes in this world. That's a view. Sausage crust is better than cheese crust. That's a view. So this view has first got to be implanted in your mind. When someone says something's good, something's yummy, something's delicious, mouth-watering, all these expressions, what lies underneath? Pleasure lies within the object. Because it's mouth-watering dish, right? Not mouth-watering chitta. But really, what is mouth-watering? It's the mind, not the food. When a pig looks at a pile of feces, mouth starts watering. When you look at it, you turn the other direction and start running. So, what's mouth watering? Is it the feces? No. It's the mind. It's the formation of the mind. It's what you create within the mind that is mouth watering. You're looking at a sight, yes, but in your mind you're creating something artificially. That artificial construct, that which you have created artificially, that is mouth watering. Now that that's mouth watering, you're expecting the outside world to give you what you have just created in your mind. This is a clash of expectations. You're expecting something, and now the outside world is coming into your inside world, where you're going to be doing a comparison. Does it match? Does it not match? When it matches, now, relief from vexation. It's relief from vexation not because pleasure was in the object. It's relief from vexation because you were implanted, this view that pleasure is in the object was given to you. From that point forward, you were looking for that sight. You went looking for it. Remember the last week, if I remember, I gave you the example of car keys. How many times have you lost a pair of car keys and gone looking for it, sir? I've lost count. One day I'd gone to check a wheel in my car, and I'd actually left the car keys under the wheel. Now, isn't that the last place you would go to check if you lost your car keys? That's the only set of keys I had. So imagine, can you even begin to imagine how long I might have looked for those keys? Because that's the last place you're going to check your car keys. Where? Under your wheel. But that's where I had put it, because I had gone to check a fault with the wheel. And then when I'd gone back into my house, I then had to go somewhere. Now I'm looking for my car keys, and I can't remember where I'd put it. So you look in the kitchen, you look in the drawers, you look in the cupboards, you look in the sink, you look under the sink. Everywhere possible. You look in the toilet, you look inside the toilet, just in case. But the last place you check is under the wheel, right? So imagine how long must I have checked, might have been looking for those keys. One whole day, I searched for those keys. Human life. Human days, one whole human day, every second I earned by doing unimaginable meritorious deeds. Every second I earned by doing unimaginable meritorious deeds. Imagine a whole day spent looking for a pair of car keys, a set of car keys, just a bit of metal and a bit of plastic. So I spent a whole day looking for them. And then just luckily, I think my wife went to throw the garbage, and then on the way back she spotted the keys by the wheel. And then she brought it to me. She says, "This is what you've been looking for?" By that time I'd even rung the manufacturer of the car and given them the registration number and the chassis number and all those digits, those new the digits that come printed, because if it's an electronic key, then you have to get it recut. So I'd already contacted them and emailed them on the phone to Germany. I was in the UK because I had ring the car manufacturer who was based in Germany to get myself a pair of keys. They speak in German and I know no German. Guten Tag is all I know in German. All that I went through for a bit of plastic. Human life. So anyway, the best part of the story was, so she came and said, "This is what you've been looking for." I'd never been so happy to see my wife. The last time I remember being so happy was when we were getting married. I was so happy to see her face with that car keys in her hand. I said, "Oh, you bring me so much happiness, darling." But the same car keys, just so that we would never lose it again, she made sure that we would always put it in one spot, so I would never lose it again. So every time I left home, I could see my car keys now. Did it bring me the same amount of joy? as the day I had lost it. So does joy exist in the car keys then? No. Is happiness a component of a car key? Is pleasure a component of an object then? No. So what has to have happened? What is the process that happened for me to enjoy that pleasure I did on that day when my wife brought me those car keys? What was the process? First, it started with view. What was the view? A car is a very precious object. A lot of value in a car. So you have to protect it. And if you lose the car keys, then, you lose access to your car. So that view got implanted in me. In other words, a car is pleasurable. So pleasure exists in the car. This is why I bought the car. Yes, the car helps me to get around and all that, but then I could have got myself a small car. Doesn't a small car help me get to where I want to go? A small, safe car would have done it. I didn't need a big car for that. A big car was to feed my ego. Not to get me where I wanted to go. That was to feed my ego. So the view got planted. And then from that point forward, so we're talking about the car keys, now I've given value to the key. So as soon as I've given value to the key, now I'm looking for those keys. Because I need now the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that arise in my mind when I look at the key. The key is the pratyaya. That which complements. So in my mind, all that can arise are Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. But for that to arise, I need to be able to see with my eyes the car key. I can't have the Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana arise in my mind without the car key coming in front of me. Yes, I can think of it, but thinking of it is not what I'm looking for right now. I need the physical object. I need to be able to touch it. I need to be able to see it right now. So when I'm vexing about that, and then looking for it and continued looking for it a whole day, imagine how vexed I was by the end of that day. I was sweating, looking for my car keys. I was stressed out, almost in tears for a set of car keys. So much vexation relieved in one moment. It's like you get a can of Coke or a bottle of Coke or a fizzy drink, shake it, and then you open the lid. What happens? It splashes all that liquid splashes out, right? That's how because the more you have shaken it, the more the gases have come to the surface, and it's now looking for a way to exit, to come out of that bottle. The more the pressure has built inside, the more there's going to be that effervescence when you unlid it. So that's what happened. So much vexation built up over 24 hours, relieved in one moment. So much pleasure at that moment in time. So this is why pleasure is nothing other than the outcome of a process. So that process had to have happened on that day. Now if I wanted the same pleasure the following day, is it enough for me to just have a set of car keys? No, what must happen? I must lose it again. Can I lose something deliberately? No, someone has to do it for me. And then I have to go looking for it. Why is hide and seek so much fun? We've all played hide and seek, haven't we? Why is hide and seek so much fun? Because when someone hides, now you're seeking. Looking, searching, seeking is vexing. Vexing, is it not? Someone says, okay, I'm going to count to 3, then you come looking for me. 3, 2, 1. You know, it's like when you play with little kids. And all they've done is they've just put a pillow over their heads. And they think the world can't see them now. Right? So 3, 2, 1, okay, open your eyes, and they're just standing right next to you, but with a pillow over their head. So they think they've hidden themselves. A lot of pleasure, or just, I didn't have to look for so much. It was there. But as you grow older, Now you become really creative about where you go and hide. Then you have to keep looking for it, or them. So you keep running around. Might they be here? Might they be there? And then you keep looking for them over several minutes, and finally you see them. Now, a lot of joy, pleasure, right? That gratification can only be achieved when there was vexation beforehand. So, on our number line again, let's come back to our number line. Have we or have we not proved then that pleasure does not exist in the outside world objects? Are you all convinced? 100%? Yes? Okay. So, our initial view was that pleasure does exist in the outside world objects. So, on this number line of pleasure, it was first on +1. Now we have proved then that outside world objects are void of pleasure. There's no pleasure to be found in the object, in the person, in the event. There's no pleasure to be found. So we moved it from a +1 to 0, implying it's void of pleasure. There's no void in it. There's no pleasure in it. But that's not enough. Because one could say, okay, well, there's no pleasure to be found. I'll just live and not look for pleasure. That's not enough. We need to push it one more on the number line to the -1, -1, where actually the nature of objects, the nature of all worldly things, is that not only are they void of pleasure, but actually they are vexatious. This is the term that we used last week. The singular term would be pelenasulu. Pelenasulu. Meaning, they are capable of vexing you. That is what it means. They are capable of vexing you. Let me ask you this question. Is water dangerous? You're all saying no. Does it not depend who you ask? Ask a toddler, is water dangerous? What might they say if they could speak? Yes, because I can't fend for myself. Is the open air dangerous? Ask a fish. Ask a fish, is water dangerous? No. But for you and I, if you threw us into the middle of the ocean, what would happen to the fish? Nothing. But you throw you and I into the middle of the ocean, if you can't swim, then you're going to drown. So water is dangerous. But to the fish, that's not the case. But put us into dry land, where there's plenty of oxygen to breathe, we're perfectly fine. Plenty of oxygen to breathe, put a fish onto dry land, what's going to happen? Well, it's not going to last very long. Absolutely. So is it not dangerous? Yes. Just depends on who you ask. So really, whether the world is dangerous or not is dependent on who you ask. So why am I saying this then? We're trying to push all worldly objects, which we now know are void of pleasure, into the displeasurable space. One more to the left. Displeasurable. Not just void of pleasure, but they're vexatious. Implying they have the capacity, they have the capability, the potential to vex you. All worldly objects. Have you all gone to the carnival? Ever been to the carnival? All of you? Yes. You know, the carnival, you have these machines into which you can put a coin into the slot, and you can do all sorts of fun things with them, right? So like there's a boxing bag, and you can box if you like, but you have to put a coin to operate it, right? This is how a carnival works. You know, these things you find in the carnivals. The what, Buddha? A Paris wheel, yes. Right? So things like that. Now, at this carnival that I'm talking to you about, there's this apparatus where there's a hand, or rather an arm, onto which is attached a boxing glove. So there's an arm that's pointing outwards like this, and there's a glove, a boxing glove attached to this. So it's just pointing at you like this. So imagine you are the winnowing fan. So you're standing in front of this machine. It's got an arm like this, right? Now there's also a slot where you can put a pound or a whatever dollar or whatever you need to put into that to operate this machine. Now you tell me, when you look at this machine, what do you think might happen if you put a coin into that? It's an arm that's got a boxing glove attached to it, and you're standing in front of it. What do you think might happen if you put a coin into that slot? Absolutely. It's going to smack you. Right? That's what it's going to do. If this is what this device looks like, where it's a boxing glove attached to a fist, a clenched fist, and you've got a slot to put a coin in, what would you call someone that walks in front of it and puts a coin into it? What would you call someone like that? A dumb fool. Or an idiot. Looking at that glove or the fist that is clenched, is there any reason for you to think that perhaps if you put a coin into it, it's going to pat your head? And it go, oh, shok puta, very good puta. Do you think it's got any chance that it might do that? What is the only thing that this clenched fist with a boxing glove is capable of? What is the only thing it's capable of? Punching you. Knocking you out. But there's a slot where you can put a coin if you choose to do so. You're not obliged to. But if you choose to do so, you can walk up to it and then put a coin into it. But the moment you put it, what's going to happen? It's going to knock you unconscious. But you see, that is the problem. You don't just get knocked out. You get knocked out unconscious. And when you get knocked out unconscious, when you regain your consciousness, you've forgotten what happened in the last few seconds. It knocked you out so bad, you forgot what happened in the last few moments before you got knocked out. So what do you do again? You stand up. Oh, a clenched fist with a boxing glove. I wonder what this might do. I've got a spare dollar in my pocket. Let me just try and put it in the slot and see what happens. What's going to happen this time round? The same thing that happened the first time round. It's just going to knock you flat. But again, it's going to knock you unconscious. It's going to knock you so bad, when you're going to hit your head, you're going to lose that last few moments of memory that you had in your memory bank. It's lost. So when you regain consciousness again, oh, boxing glove, clenched fist. I wonder what this might do. I've got another dollar in my hand. Let me see. Is there any way that this boxing glove could bring you pleasure, happiness, satisfaction, or joy? What is the only thing that this device, that this apparatus is going to bring you? Pain and suffering. Torture. This is a torture device. But it's a self-torture device, not just any torture device. We've got no problems with torture devices. This is a self-torture device. Because you have to first activate it. Where does the activation mechanism exist? With the device or with you? That's with you. You have the activation mechanism. So what do? You put the coin into it. The moment you put the coin in, it's just going to punch you in the face. And it's going to knock you unconscious. When you walk up to it, there are other people there. Or just say another person there. And he goes through the same process. He doesn't remember that he got knocked out a moment ago as well. All you see him is he's operating this device. And you go, hey, what are you doing there? Yeah, this fantastic device. It's a brilliant machine. I wonder what it might do. I'm just going to put $1 in. No, move out of the way. I need to go. It's my turn. And he said, no, I got here first. Now they're both fighting for what? To get knocked out. They're both fighting and arguing and debating for a punch. Whose money are they spending? Their own. They're spending their own money to get punched in the face so they could get knocked out. And oh, what a pity. At the moment you get knocked out, you lose consciousness and memory of what happened a few moments ago. So the moment you regain consciousness, imagine this was put into a black box. So you couldn't see from the outside. Only one person was allowed into this room at any given time. Only one person is allowed into this box at any given time. So if you walk into this room, no one else can come in until you leave this room. And in there is this device. You've got some money that you've earned, and what you can do is put this coin into this device, and all it's going to do is knock you out. A few moments later, you regain consciousness. You look at it. Someone's on the outside knocking. Hey, are you done already? I want to have a turn myself. It's my go. We've all been waiting. And look at the queue. On the outside it says, come have the time of your life. On the outside it says, come on in. We will show you the stars. Well, of course. So you walk in, looking to see the stars. Well, they do deliver, don't they? They keep to their promise. You do see stars. Now, aren't all material objects in this entire universe the same? That device has no capability to bring you pleasure. By design, it cannot bring you pleasure. It's by design. It's not like pleasure was in there before and someone came and took it away. No. By design, it just cannot bring you pleasure. The only thing it's capable of bringing you is pain. And even for that, you have to spend your own money. Now think about all the things that you have attached yourselves to. Every single thing you've attached yourselves to. Objects and people, children, your parents and husbands and wives, cars and houses, every single thing we've attached ourselves to. They have zero capability to bring you what? Pleasure. Zero. Not 7%. Zero. Zero capability to bring you pleasure. And yet, you spend your own hard-earned money to acquire them in the hope that it might bring you pleasure. But are they pleasurable objects? No, because they cannot bring you pleasure, because pleasure is not a characteristic of an object. Pleasure is the outcome of a process that happens within the object. No, a process that happens in one's own mind. A process that happens in one's own mind. So all these things that you have attached yourselves to, ladies and gentlemen, including myself, all of us, if there's anything that we've attached ourselves to, it could be a grain of sand. Their nature is that they're vexatious. In other words, they're capable of only one thing. We're not talking about physical, by the way, okay? I think you all know this by now. I don't need to go over that again. We're not talking about physical relief from pain. Of course, sights can do that. Food, right, relieves us from physical discomfort. Clothing, shelter, right? All this, it relieves us from physical discomfort. That's not what we're talking about here. Because when I asked you what is Nibbana, some of you said it's mental happiness. So that is what we're talking. We're not talking about physical happiness. Nibbana can't give you that. But when you're no longer vexing mentally, then eventually you will stop all physical suffering as well. That's a byproduct. That's a bonus. End to physical suffering is a bonus. The main objective is end of mental suffering. Looking back at your lives, what have you suffered from more, physical or mental? Mental. That is really mental, right? I mean, the fact that we suffer so much mentally is mental, isn't it? But we've been spending our own hard-earned money to get what? A knockout. To get a punch in the face. Because all the objects that we come across in our world, sight, sound, smell, taste and touch, all they can bring us is vexation. But to bring us vexation, you have to first attach yourself to it. So again, why do they bring us vexation? It's like when I asked you the question, is water dangerous? Water is not dangerous to a fish. So the Buddha never went in front of an inanimate object and said, oh, the world is anicca dukkha anatta. The Buddha never walked in front of a winnowing fan and said, dear winnowing fan, the world is anicca dukkha anatta. Because there is no way that this winnowing fan is going to interact with the outside world. But you and I, we interact with the outside world. Physically, no problem. But mentally also we try to interact with the outside world. And our mental interactions with the outside world are through our eyes, ears, nose, tongue and touch. Our body, right? This is how we interact with the outside world. And through the outside world come into our inside world, sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. Mentally we come to this view, this notion that pleasure exists in the outside world objects, that they are pleasurable. And the moment you do that, now you're waiting for that moment where that sight comes into you. You're just waiting, like those car keys. Happiness is in the car key, so I'm just waiting to find them. Remember last week I think I told you about the inspector, the detective that goes looking for a criminal? A guy gets a job as a detective. Right? Now his job is to go and find the bad guy who's a criminal. So this is an internationally recognized criminal, or IRC Karya. Right? So this internationally recognized criminal is a thief, is a robber. Now normally, if you come across a thief, do you run in their direction or do you run in the opposite direction? In the opposite direction. But that's because you're not the detective. The day you become a detective, now it becomes your job to go looking for the robber, looking for that thief. So now you're vexing for their sight, for their sound, the smell, well, hopefully not taste, but the touch. You're vexing. As a detective, you're vexing to bring the outside robber, this outside world object into your world. This is why you go looking for it. This is why you go asking as a detective. Any chance you might have seen this guy? Here's a picture. Have you spotted him anywhere? Right? You go looking for it. But the day before, you were not a detective. When did you go looking for that guy? No. If you knew that he was around in your locality, you might even shift home. There's a robber loose. There's a thief on the loose. So we can't be hanging around here. We've got to go somewhere else to protect ourselves. But now that you become the detective, you become the inspector, now you're going in the direction that they're in. So is it the robber that brought you displeasure or pleasure? No. When you're looking for something, now your mind goes into a state of vexation. It's like a vacuum. I can have a vacuum cleaner at home, right? It's like when you're looking for something, your mind goes into a vacuum. And now you're waiting for that thing to come in. And with the vacuum cleaner, it's obviously air. But this mind, because the mind can't take air into it, can it? No, you never heard of a bloated mind? No. You've got a bloated tummy, but not a bloated mind. A mind can't take air in. But the only thing that a mind can take in are Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. This is all the mind can take in. The mind can't ingest anything else. It can't digest anything else. This is all the mind can take. So no matter what sight the eyes look at, when the brain delivers that signal into the mind, in the mind arises Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Really, the other day I was thinking perhaps maybe I should explain to you what Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana is. But then I was thinking, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you understand what Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana is or not. Because what is the cause of all suffering? Ignorance of Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, right? What is the cause of all suffering? Attachment. It's not the ignorance of what is Rupa. Now if you begin to know what Rupa is now, have you relieved yourself of all vexation? No. Has all attachment now just disappeared? No. So it doesn't matter what Rupa is. It doesn't matter whether it's Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana or whether it's grass and whatever. Soil, grass, sand, stones. It doesn't matter what it is. Really doesn't matter. Whatever it is, this Panchaskandha, whatever it is, this is all your mind can accept. Your mind can't accept the outside world object. When I show you this betel leaf didn't go into your mind. Your eyes looked at this. It took the sight. The color entered your eyes through light waves. That took an imprint and left. Your brain picked up those signals, left an imprint on the mind. And in the mind, at that moment of leaving that imprint, in the mind arises Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Prior to that happening though, if you were of the belief, if you were instilled with the view that this betel leaf is pleasurable, now what just happened in your mind is, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana arose. Your mind is now able to perceive that I've just seen a betel leaf. Because you were looking for it, pleasure has just come into your mind. Pleasure comes in from this side, betel leaf comes in from the other. Now you make this connection. You've just seen the betel leaf, you feel pleasure, now you make this connection within your mind to go, it was the betel leaf that brought me pleasure. But underneath something else entirely different is going on. Underneath what's going on? You were attached. Then you were vexed. Now, relief from vexation. This is all happening underneath. But you're not seeing any of this. When all of us came into this world, we didn't know a thing about chocolate cake. But someone put into our heads, into our minds, chocolate cake. Delicious. Yummy. Tasty. Mouth-watering. All these are words to express pleasurable. Right? So someone put these notions into our mind. And the moment that our minds took that notion, took that belief, took that view, now the mind goes into a vacuum. It's now waiting for it. Okay, if it's so pleasurable, then give it to me already. That's what the mind's going. If it's so pleasurable like you say, then go on, give it to me. Let me have it. That's what the mind's saying. So when the mind receives it now, how does the mind receive it? First it has to come through your eyes, ears, nose, tongue and touch. And the only things that can come through them are sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. But the moment they come in through the five senses, these five senses take a signal to the brain and the brain leaves an imprint on the mind. What arises in the mind? Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. And the moment that arises in the mind's now looking through the signal that came through the eyes and it's saying, chocolate cake. Because it was looking for chocolate cake, now it's just been relieved of that vexation. And because it's now relieved from vexation, feels pleasure. The tongue is tasting chocolate cake, pleasure is coming from the other side, put the two together, and what is the conclusion? Pleasure arrived from the chocolate cake. The biggest mistake of our lives. Underneath, there's a whole new ball game going on. Attachment, vexation, relief from vexation. Ignorance about all of this is the cause of suffering. Because we don't see what happens underneath. On the surface you see, this object brought me pleasure, so now, what should you do? From here on, my life's purpose becomes to go looking for those objects that bring me pleasure. So now your eyes become a slave to the mind. Your nose becomes a slave to the mind. Your ears, your nose in your body becomes a slave to the mind. Why? Because if pleasure came from the outside world, then it's just been proven, right? This is the thing. Falsely proven. That pleasure came from the outside world. It's just been proven. Inaccurately, correct, yes. This is an entirely baseless conclusion. But it has just been proven. It's like someone being convicted of murder, but falsely. Someone falsely convicted of murder. Isn't that a real shame? Because of wrong evidence. Did the mind consult all of the evidence before coming to that conclusion? No. Imagine if there's a law court where they just, whatever looks apparent, they'll go by it. They don't take the trouble to go and study the evidence. They don't go and make investigations. They don't hire inspectors to go and ask questions. They don't do any of that. Whatever looks apparent at the surface, okay, you killed him. But it has just been proven. It's like someone being convicted of murder, but falsely. Someone falsely convicted of murder. Isn't that a real shame? Because of wrong evidence. Did the mind consult all of the evidence before coming to that conclusion? No. Imagine if there's a law court where they just, whatever looks apparent, they'll go by it. They don't take the trouble to go and study the evidence. They don't go and make investigations. They don't hire inspectors to go and ask questions. They don't do any of that. Whatever looks apparent at the surface, okay, you killed him. Oh, how they fool us all. What's the color of love again? Red. Why so? Because now the world can make a living off of you. I love you. Prove it. Well, the only way I can prove it is if I show you something. Or I give you something to listen to. Or I hold something under your nose. Or I put something on your tongue. Or I give you something to touch. This is the only way I can prove that I love you. True or false? True. This is the only way I can prove to you that I love you. So if I have to bring you an object to prove that I love you, now there's a new business. Let's all go and create the objects that help people prove to other people that they love each other. Oh. Is this the world you really love to live in? Where everyone's just waiting to make money off of you? Where you have become the object that's being sold? You are the object that's being sold. Do you realize, ladies and gentlemen, how cruel this world is that we live in? You see, we don't spend any time to look at any of this. Did you, seriously, in your lives, begin to think, why is red the color of love? Did you ever stop to think, why do we give roses to each other to express love and affection? Why is it chocolates to express love and affection? We never stopped to think, did we? Because we just accepted it. Whatever was given, we took as gospel truth. And the world made an enterprise out of us. The world's flogging you like a dead horse. It's flogging you like a dead horse. And you're okay with it? Seriously? I'm wasting my breath in this, in which case. Every day I give a sermon like this, something new comes to mind, and every day I'm so glad that I'm no longer in that wretched world out there. Because everyone's just trying to make money out of me. Everyone's just trying to make a living out of me. No longer am I going to succumb to people's demands. No longer am I going to allow people to make a living off of me. That is not the purpose of my life in this world. I didn't come here to make other people happy. I came here to find my own liberation, find my own salvation. How about you? Is it not time you did the same? At least if you begin to understand this, begin to think about it, begin to contemplate, do you realize how all of this has just been shunned away? Don't think about all of this stuff. You've got TV to watch. Why worry about all of this? Don't try to understand the world and how businesses work and how people make money. Just watch TV. We'll bring a new movie, a best watched movie every month. Just go and watch those movies. Don't worry about all this stuff. That's not for people like you. Let us worry about that. Says who? The people who make a living off of you. They're sapping the lifeblood in your bodies, ladies and gentlemen. They're sapping away on your lifeblood. And you're okay with that? This is the world into which you're going to be taking your children into. This is the world in which you promise your children, go and find a happy future. Go and be happy. The world is your oyster. Yeah, what's the nature of an oyster? It's got a clamp. You're going to reach out for the oyster and it's just going to go shut. Now you're in it. There's no getting out now. The world's your oyster. Yeah, right. I was promised this, but I never took a moment to think about these things until now. Now I realize this vexation of mine is why I have suffered every single time. Attachment is why I have suffered every single time in samsara. This attachment of mine is why people were able to slave me. True or false? This is how people were able to slave me. How do they slave me? Like a cow. Tie a noose around my neck and then they just get me to do anything that they want me to do. When they say be here at 8 a.m., I have to be there at 8 a.m. Not 8:01, at 8 a.m. Why? Because of my attachment. I'm attached to sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. And the only way that I can get sight, sound, smell, taste and touch and the pleasure that comes through them is by going out into the outside world, because they have shops where they sell pleasure, don't they? And in the shops that they sell pleasure, they ask for what? Money. And for me to get my money, I have to be there at 8 a.m. This is the world you want to live in? This is the world in which you seek happiness for your children, ladies and gentlemen? Is this the world you promise your children that they will one day find happiness and satisfaction and fulfillment? Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm just dumb. You can't be dumb. Must be me. Maybe I'm just not getting it. So do you see how all these objects, they are vexatious, capable of vexing you, have the potential to vex you, have the capability to vex you and nothing else. They do not have the capability to bring you pleasure. It's like that, think about that punching fist at the carnival. Reflect on that example, several times at least, and until it becomes crystal clear, true. Your children are like that punching fist with a glove over it. All you have to do is put that coin into it. And what's it going to give back to you? A good punch. Your house, your car, your jewelry, your job, your flower beds, your ornaments at home, your grandfather's clock that stands so tall and beautiful at home. All of these things. Your photo albums. Each page has a punching fist. Turn a page, knockout. Next page, knockout. Next page, knockout. Every album you've downloaded ever in your life, every song you've played was a knockout punch. But oh alas, you got knocked out so bad, you forgot. You forgot what you did a moment ago to get knocked out. And then what do you do again? Another coin goes into the slot. This is the happiness that you seek. I agree, duties and responsibilities are there, because of which, there may be a pace at which you can go on this journey. Perhaps you don't have every hour of every day like I have to practice this journey, to practice this path and complete this journey. So the question I have to ask you then is, the times that you do have, okay, the things that you do for relaxation, when you take time out from work, from attending to your children, right, your household chores, what do you find yourself doing now? This is what matters, okay, because this is what I'm trying to prove to you, ladies and gentlemen, that Nibbana is not something you find when you come into the monastery. Nibbana is not in the robes. Nibbana is the transformation that happens in your mind. Do you have to come, when you leave this room, are you leaving your minds here as well? And you come back next week and then pick it up again? No, you take your mind with you, right? So you have it when you go home as well. You have it on the way to home, on the way home as well, on the way to work, at school, in your tuition classes, at the playground, wherever you go, in the toilet, you have your mind with you. It's your best friend, is always with you. It's always with you. So the question I have you is this, now, in your lives, when you have spare time, free time for relaxation, what do you do? Do you still go and sit in front of the TV like you used to? Do you still pick up an old newspaper just to find out what's going on around the world? Do you still browse the internet for no particular reason? Just because you can? I used to do that. I used to do that. Can someone hit me, please? Take one of those. Actually, no, they're not big enough. I used to go on the internet, just browse for no reason. Go on news sites, what's going on in the world. Oh, let's just click on that. Oh, that takes me to another thing. Oh, let's just click on that. And another. And just click on that. And then click. I didn't realize I was getting clicked on. If you still find yourself doing that, then don't complain, oh, we've got duties and responsibilities. Swami knows, how can we practice the path? It's okay for you to say, you've been ordained, you're at the monastery, but look at us. We've got so many duties and responsibilities. Well, what do you do when you have a spare moment? Do you go and sit in front of the TV? Then do not come and argue with me about that. When you have a spare moment, do you just pick up the phone and ring an old friend just to have a chat? I'm not saying don't, by the way. You've got to decide what you do with your own time. When you're at work, you really haven't got much choice. You really haven't got much choice. You have to do what's expected of you, right? When you are helping your children with their homework, then you really haven't got much choice. You have to help them with that. When you're at someone's place, when you're waiting for an appointment, when you're at an interview, you can't go and do your Nibbana stuff there. You have to do what is expected of you at that point in time. Because you still seek pleasure in sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. So you have to act the way the world expects you to. So when you go to work, you can't go in a white sarong and a shirt, because that's the Nibbana dress code. You can't go like that. You have to go in tie and suit and shoes, and that's how you should go to work. True, it's going to cost you a good few pennies, but you signed up for that contract. So there's nothing you can do about that. But the times where you have spare, how do you act then? This is what matters. If you're the driver, then yes, you have to pay attention to what's going on the road. But if you're a passenger, now you have time. Now you have time to reflect. Do you still find yourself turning your head, looking outside the windows? What are you still seeking? Pleasure. Where does it exist? Oh, in the outside, isn't it? Oh, actually, come to think of it, I have a request to ask you all. When I used to be a working man, I had the means to get what I wanted, but now I don't, so I have to rely on you who come along to sermons, right? So I have a request of all of you. If you can afford this, then please help us. I think it would be good for all our monks at the monastery to have one of these. There are about 40 odd monks. So if you can afford, and I think you are all reasonably well off, please can you all, when you come next week, possibly if you can, bring me an object, I don't know how expensive it's going to be, but something that has pleasure in it. Is that, too much to ask? I know it's not nice to ask as a monk, but as a layman I could afford these things, but nowadays, I don't have any money to go and buy such things. So I have to ask you, I have to rely on you. Because, you live in a world where objects have pleasure, right? This is why you have ornaments at home. Flower vases. Pleasure, right? Can you bring me just one that has pleasure in it? What about your TV? I don't want a big TV, just bring a small TV, but it has to have pleasure in it. Just bring one if you can, and then if it's okay, I'll ask you to bring 40. Otherwise it would be a waste, right? You bring 40 and he doesn't have it, then we have to return all 40 of it. So just bring one, and I'll check it out next week, and then if it's okay, then just be kind enough to bring one for all of us. Actually, no, bring one for me and Dasahamru as well, while you're at it. Do you feel like hanging yourselves? Sorry, I shouldn't mock you like that, should I? It's bad. But isn't this what we do every day? Surround ourselves with things that we think have pleasure in them. Why did you go to the cinema the last time you went into one? Because the movie was pleasurable. Why did you watch that cartoon last time you switched on the TV? Because the cartoon was pleasurable. Why did you bake that cake? Because it was pleasurable. Why did you bake panivadalu? Pleasurable, right? Oh, you're going to have lots of pleasurable things coming around. It's New Year. Think. Ultimately, you've become the pawn for the world, on the world stage. You're the actor. The world's taken a good, comfortable seat and watching you act on a stage for its pleasure. Ultimately, you know what? In your pursuit of pleasurable objects, you have become the object of pleasure. I don't know if you realize the profoundness of that statement. In your pursuit of pleasurable objects, in your pursuit of pleasure, the world has transformed you into the object of pleasure. Do you realize that? This is the world you want to live in? Is this the world you have promised your children? Well, this is the world you brought your children into. You can't reverse that now. But as parents, and I'm not just talking about you people here, but there's lots of people listening to these sermons online. And this is why my parents took me abroad. And we went and settled down in foreign countries, because we thought that was where pleasure was. A lot of our listeners are online. Our online listeners are based around the globe, in countries where parents took children, and actually a lot of parents went there for their children, just like my parents did. It was for the children, for their good, for their benefit, promising them a land of pleasure. Ultimately, that was all just a waste of time, just a waste of energy, just a waste of human potential. This human potential that we all have to seek ultimate liberation, which we just found ourselves kicking in the backside. Where are we on the number line now then? So we started with these conversations, with these sermons, discussions. We wanted to prove that there was no pleasure in the outside world objects. And when we speak of an outside world object, the only things that come into our world are what? Sights, sounds, smells, taste and touch. There is no other way it can come into your world. Well, there is the Dhamma, which is a mental object, which is true, but that, of course, you all know. This is why love is a mental object. Is it not? Love is a mental object in real terms. So, but when that gets implanted on your mind, now you ask the question, prove it, then you have to go forward and use other means to prove it. How the world has made a living out of you, right? But now we realize that pleasure is only the outcome of a process, it's not a characteristic of an object. So is there any point then in associating objects for the purpose of pleasure? Again, we are talking about mental pleasure, not the physical. Physical pleasure, absolutely yes. I wear this robe. Is this not an outside world object? Yes, and does this not bring me physical pleasure? Of course. What about your cars? Is that not an outside world object? Does it not bring you pleasure? Yes. But if it brings you mental pleasure, there's a problem. All they can bring you has to be physical pleasure. Because the moment you say, well, it does bring me mental pleasure as well, what you're saying is, I have just outsourced my happiness. I have just handed the keys of my house of happiness over to my car. So what happens when the car is subject to viparinama? That physical world object is subject to constant flux. You never know when. It's not an if, it's a when. And when the event happens, then what's that going to leave you? Where's that going to leave you? In a state of despair, in a state of frustration. So like water is dangerous to an ant but not to a fish, all these objects that we associate on a day-to-day basis, they are vexatious to you and I because we have a mind that is capable of attachment. If we had minds that were not capable of attachment, the Buddha wouldn't come into this world and speak of anicca dukkha anatta. But we have a mind that is capable of attaching, tanha, because it's based in ignorance, avidya, that has come through feeds from the outside world, asatpurusha sevane, association with immoral, ignoble people that convinced us that outside world objects are pleasurable. This outside world is pleasurable. This is the story. This is your story, really. If you want to know your story, you don't need to take the family tree. Here's your story. How you began. What happened to your grandparents. How your parents began. How did your parents begin? Someone put a drishti into your grandparents. Have kids. That's how they began. Why? Because pleasure is to be found in children. Children are pleasurable, right? Well, now you know better. But now it's too late to reverse. No, I shouldn't say that. I've said that to my mother though. Well, that's the truth. I'm not here to hide the truth. That is the truth. There is no way your child can bring you pleasure. Yes or no? Because pleasure is not a characteristic of the outside world object. So how can it bring pleasure? No matter how well that child is performing at school, he could be an all-rounder. He could be the best in sports. He could be the world number one. He still can't bring you pleasure. He's world number one in snooker and you hate the bloody sport. No? So it's not your child that brought you pleasure. Relief from vexation brought you pleasure. And vexation is an internal process. Happens all together, completely and entirely on the inside. Nothing to do with the outside world. Nothing to do with the outside world. So, this is why I say, if you've understood this, ladies and gentlemen, you no longer need to come looking for recluse in a monastery to practice this from now on. Practice it where you are. Because when I say all worldly objects are vexatious, you might think, well, actually, let me think about home. There's the radio, there's the TV, that could break, yes, that's vexatious. Then there's the cooker, that's vexatious. Then there's my children, that's vexatious. So you're thinking about all this. Okay, now show me one thing, this is a monastery. Show me one thing here in this room that's not vexatious. Show me one thing that's not. Show me one person that's not. Show me a grain of sand, for all you like, that's not vexatious. That is not capable of vexing you if you attach yourself to it. This winnowing fan, do you have one at home? No, you have this at the monastery, at the temple. So if you think you have to come to the temple, you have to come to the monastery to attain Nibbana, well, I've just found something vexatious at the monastery that you don't have at home. So one less problem at home, because you don't have this at home. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? You don't have this at home. So this is not going to bother you at home. This problem is only going to arise when you turn up at our door. Who here has vexed because of a robe? Who here has vexed because of an alms bowl? No, you won't. Until you become a monk. Until you become a nun. Because now, when that becomes your alms bowl, when that becomes your robe, now if internally in your mind you have just attached yourself to it, source of vexation or not? Absolutely 100% source of vexation. Blocks your path to Nibbana. So if you think it's at home you have blocks, barricades on your path to Nibbana, you are mistaken. So is it wrong then to come to the monastery? What you receive at the monastery, ladies and gentlemen, is not a physical environment to help you attain Nibbana. Because don't come to a temple or a monastery, don't go and seek hermitage to seek physical recluse, physical detachment. There is no such concept in Buddhist philosophy. Buddhist philosophy is all about mental detachment, not physical detachment. Because it's not the physical detachment that brought you suffering. Like I said, you don't have one of these at home. So if this is the source of suffering, well, you don't have it at home. I have it here. Actually, we've got hundreds of these here. You don't have one at home. You've got a TV at home and I don't have one here. So which one of these two is the source of vexation? The TV or the winnowing fan? Which one? Which one? Both. If you attach to it, then they are both sources of vexation. Then they'll give you vexation plentiful. Abundance of vexation is there to up for grabs. All you have to do is attach. So where must you be then to detach mentally? Where on this planet is the best place to do that? Which monastery? Which cliff of the Himalayas must you go to for the best place to detach mentally? Which city in India must you visit for that? Is it Kusinagar or which one? Benares? Which one must you go to? To let go of mental detachment. Which one? No such place. No such place. Mental detachment has to happen wherever you are right now. So again I come back to the point, so does that mean you should not come to the monastery? No. What do you receive at the monastery then? It's noble association, moral association, association with people, men and women, who have dedicated their lives to detaching themselves mentally from all conditional things. And for that they practice the path. And when they practice the path, they have experiences of times where it can become challenging, of times where they have to check the road before they jump. Experiences of where it's happened, where things might have gone wrong. An instruction 24/7, because that's all we talk about here. When was the last time you came here and I said, oh, you must watch that movie? When was the last time I said that? When was the last time you came here and one of our monks said, you know that chocolate pie, raspberry pie, oh, it's so delicious, you must have it. When was the last time one of our monks said that? This is why you should come here. This is why you should associate with noble and moral people. Moral people will abstain you, will help you, not abstain you, you have to do that yourself, but will help you, will guide you in your abstinence from immeritorious deeds, unwholesome deeds. That's what moral people will help you do. Then you have noble people, Aryas, who will talk to you about the uselessness, the futility of all conditional objects, of all conditioned things. Futility of existence in all 31 realms of existence. Not say, go and now live a pleasurable life in the heavens. Because what happens in the heavens? Still, attachment, vexation, relief from vexation, pleasure. Take a wrong view. Oh, what brought me pleasure? Sight. So what do we do now again? Go and attach to sight. Again what? It's a vicious circle. One feeds the other, that feeds this. A feeds B, B feeds A. A feeds B, B feeds A. You can't break this circle. It's a vicious circle. Once you come across a noble person, they will help you break that vicious circle, and now you have a virtuous circle. Through a virtuous circle, this is a kusala. Once you start doing the kusala, then one feeds the other again. That's why the Buddha says, once you enter the path of Nibbana, there's nothing you need to do deliberately. You don't need to forcefully practice this path. It happens. What you need to do is remain mindful about the thoughts that come into your mind. When do I sense pleasure? The moment you sense pleasure, should you shout from the rooftops or be dead scared? Why? Because what lies underneath? Vexation. Underneath every experience of pleasure lies bags full of vexation. Underneath every experience of that. Worldly beings are afraid of pain, unhappiness, disease and decay and death. That's what worldly beings are worried about, but not Aryas. Aryas are not afraid of death. They're not afraid of disease. They're not afraid of decay. That's not what they're afraid of. What they're afraid of are pleasurable things, because that's what you attach to. It's attachment that leads you to all that suffering. They don't worry about the aftermath. What happens afterwards? They don't worry about the consequences. They're worried about what leads you to the consequences. Because you can't fix the result, fix the causes, the result will be fixed automatically. Make sense? Okay. So let's take a moment to watch a couple of videos. I think we'll watch the free man one first. Have we made this available online? Do our listeners right now have a link to it? Yeah? Have you posted a link on Skype? Okay. So our online listeners have the opportunity to click on that link that Dasahandru has kindly posted on Skype. Attracted some new faces. So what did you think when you were watching that video? There was a story there. True enough. Perhaps some of you might have watched the movie before this. But there was something quite profound in that video clip. In what happened to that man as he walked into a desert, not knowing where he was going. He was heading for a village so that he could find an oasis in the middle of this desert. And then one fine day he put his step on a mine. Now with his foot on a mine, he's scared. He's worried. He's afraid. He's dead scared. Because now he's thinking about all the things that might happen to him if he was to lift his foot. So, as the story unfolded, you would have seen that there was this Berber or a free man, a local, came along and then he inspired this person. What did he say? You got to keep moving on. He said, don't be scared. Take that step. Let go, in other words. Just let go. Really think about your own lives, ladies and gentlemen. Are there not times in life where you are scared to let go because you don't know how this might unfold, what consequences might come your way? A lot of the time we have a lot of young anagarikas who come to the monastery. And this is only one aspect of the story. I'll talk about the other in a moment. A lot of young anagarikas who come to the monastery and they come along sometimes with their parents. And their parents are a lot more worried than these young men are. Because they're worried what might happen if they were to let go. What might happen then? What might happen next? What if the whole world collapses? Well, that shows that their whole world has been built on this one person. Outsourcing happiness again, is it not? They don't for a moment think, what if my son dies? Is this death that they're walking to? No. It's monkhood. But the parents are quite happy to hold his hand and cross the street, where there are many hundreds of vehicles going back and forth. You don't know when. It's just a matter of time. How many hazards are out there in the world? Vehicles, accidents, bad people, robbers and murderers, all out there. When was the last time you heard of a murderer having killed a monk at a monastery. That doesn't happen. When was the last time someone got electrocuted in a monastery? When was the last time they got run down by a truck at a monastery? But people are so scared to let go, so worried what might happen, so afraid of letting go. So that man, this free man, came along. Did you notice how, after he had obviously inspired this person, and at one point he was going to lose his consciousness because he'd been in this dry, arid weather in the desert for a long time, and of course he was going to faint. And at that point he stopped him from falling. Because in this man's mind, this man who would put his foot on the mine, all he could hear was this Berber's words resounding in his mind, going, move on, move on, move on. But he was not willing to take that step by himself. He was going to faint. This was like an accident going to happen. That's when this man came along and said, no, that's not how you should take this step. Take this step knowing, intentionally take this step. Not by mistake, not by accident. So this is akin to a Satpurusha, a noble person. This is why they can only show you the way, but you have to take that step. They can't take that step on your behalf. You can't fall into the Noble Eightfold Path. Anyone heard of someone falling into the Noble Eightfold Path? You can't fall into it by mistake. It's not something you fall into. You walk into the Noble Eightfold Path. It has to happen volitionally. You have to know that this is happening. You need to be able to take boldly that step, both into the Noble Eightfold Path as well as into robes, if perhaps some might decide to choose that path in life. And then as the story progresses, we begin to unfold events in this man's life. How every time he found himself in a troublesome situation. Once it was when he'd walked into his mother and father having a quarrel, having a fight. Right? He walked into that situation and he was slapped, he was punched by his father. But again, on that occasion, the reason for that was because he put his step. He walked into that. Didn't he? They didn't call him down. He walked into that trap. So, he put that step forward. He asked for it. And he got it. And then another time, where he was in a pub, in a public house, and where there was a brawl with some rowdy guys. They were throwing around this young girl, and he wanted to be the hero. Again, he put a step forward. Attachment, right? Every single time. That's attachment. Attachment every time, bringing these consequences. Because he wanted to get involved. There's a better way this should happen. I'm attached to the outcome, so I have a precise way as to how this outcome should unfold. I have a preference, attachment. And then again, when he proposes, when he comes back from the war, and he meets his spouse, perhaps or his girlfriend, his fiancée, and he proposes, let's get married. He puts his step forward, and the mind is triggered. That mind, this is dukkha. Suffering every time triggered only because he put that step forward. Did he not do that volitionally, intentionally? He put that step forward himself. No one forced him to do it. But every time he put the step, he always asked for trouble. Trouble came his way without hesitation. All he had to do was put his foot down. Attach and trouble will come to you with no hesitation, with no mercy. All you have to do is ask for it. So what do you have to do if you want trouble? Just ask for it. Just ask for it. You get bags of it. Trucks of trouble. All you have to do is just ask for it. Just touch it. You want trouble from this mic? What do you have to do? Touch it. Physically? No. Mentally. Touch it mentally, and trouble with no hesitation. All comes your way. This is why I say these are all vexatious objects. Events, people, objects, all vexatious. In other words, capable of subjecting you to vexation. Did any of those events in his life bring him pleasure? Could they have brought him pleasure? No. Why? Is pleasure something that can be brought to you by a third party? Is pleasure something that can be brought to you by another object? No. We say pleasure is the outcome of an internal process, not the characteristic of an outside world object. And then towards the end of that clip, where he finally is brave enough, courageous enough to take a step forward, and he moves on, having taken the advice. You see, again, he listened, but then he acted. It was not the listening. Listening wasn't enough. Listening inspired him. This is what I must do. Not move back, move forward. So he took his step. He moved forward. He acted. That was the 80%. Only 20% of that movie clip was taking advice, instruction. 80% was him picking up the courage to do it, wasn't it? I think that was about 20-25 minutes long. How much of that clip was that Berber giving this man instruction? Very little. Most of it was him picking up the courage, building up that confidence within him, practicing the path to take that step. This is why I say 20%, 80%, 80-20, everywhere. This is the Pareto principle. So eventually he took that step. He let go. And then nothing happened. Now he turned round, dug up this tin can, which all this time he was thinking was a mine. This is why he was worried of putting his foot back up. It was only a tin can. What did he find within the tin can? A toy soldier. A toy soldier. There's something so profound in that. When he had his foot on the mine, what was he trying to maintain? He was trying to maintain the self. He was trying to maintain his ego. Because a soldier without a leg, that's not a soldier. I'm not talking about the physical aspect here. I'm talking about what's going on in this man's mind. As a soldier, I cannot be someone without a leg. I can't go back to my family without a leg. I'm trying to maintain something here. Wasn't he trying to maintain something? Because if he had nothing to maintain, he didn't have to think twice about putting his foot forward. If that was an arahant, would he have thought twice? No. Now got nothing to lose. Take whatever you like. But this man, he's trying to maintain something. He's trying to maintain a state. And that state was what he found inside that tin can. He was trying to maintain in his mind a soldier. But alas, it was only a toy soldier. Is a toy a real thing? No. It's just a fake. It's just a fallacy. A figment of one's imagination. Ignorance all over. So profound, that story. I think it's worth watching it again if you get the chance. I don't know if you watched that movie before. Perhaps with what I've explained to you now, maybe watch it again if you had a chance. If you have a chance. I think this clip gets posted on Skype, perhaps eventually on YouTube, and I think we've created a disc. You're welcome to pick it up as you leave the monastery today. There's a disc which contains all the videos, or at least most of the videos that we've produced, our monks and our anagarikas have produced at the monastery, using clips from everywhere. We've got to do with what we've got. We can't bring in actors and actresses to shoot stuff here, right? But this is the thing: you don't need to go and invent new material. To attain Nibbana, to tell the story of Nibbana, you don't need to invent new material, because Nibbana is everywhere. I think that says a story as well. This is why we were able to pick bits of clips from here, there and everywhere and produce that story. This is what you should be intelligent enough to do. When you see events happen, unfold in front of you, be intelligent enough, be wise to apply the doctrine. Apply the concepts that you have learned, and then Nibbana comes alive in front of you. Nibbana comes alive in front of you. You don't need to invent it. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't invent Nibbana. Because Nibbana was never invented. It was only discovered. The Buddha discovered Nibbana, not invented Nibbana. Much like Columbus discovered America, he never invented America. So don't go trying to invent Nibbana. It's there. You just need to open your eyes to see. And this eyes is the Dhamma. the sight of Dhamma. Once you have the Dhamma, now you can look, wherever you look, you're going to see the Dhamma. How are we doing for time? Because it's 7 p.m. I know you have to leave. If that's the case, then we can show the other clip the following week. It's up to you. I'm home. If you must leave, if you are in a rush, could you put your arm up? So, because if that's the case, then we'll leave it and. Shall we conclude? Okay, so we'll show it next week. But if you can pick up the disc as you leave, and on there you can find the video. But when you come back next week, we'll also watch it because I want to be fair on everybody. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair. I gave you some homework last week, and you thought I wouldn't ask, huh? That's what you thought last week as well. So, have you done your homework? Do you remember what I asked you to do? Were you here last? No, you weren't here, Putta. Let me tell you what you had to do? No. Who's done their homework? Very good. So we have some. Excellent. Okay. So what was the homework again? And then do what? Okay. Absolutely. You're never going to be able to finish that list, madam. You can try until the day you die, that's not going to end. Even if life paused right now, you still won't be able to complete that list. That is one thing we can learn from that exercise. You can never complete that list, which also means there's an infinite number of beings who have come to our help, assistance and support. So for those of you who have done it and you haven't completed the second part of it, what I wanted you to do was, after you've done that, is to pick some of those names, go in order if you can, and then one by one do the Arya Maitreya and pass on the blessings of the Arya Maitreya to them. So that is the most important aspect of it. So this is something we do at our monastery, and we started doing it last month, and we do it every month from here on. One day every month, all our monks and anagarikas, we get together, we write down all the names of people in our lives who've helped us, and every time it's going to be a new list. This time it's going to be Mother, Father, Amma, Appachi, Ammi, Tati, and next time it's going to be a completely different list. And if we run out of names, we've always got the Dhaniputta, the alms book, which has your names in it. Because you have fed us, you have clothed us, you have given us shelter, you have given us medicines.
One time can you take one person or all of you?
It's however you feel comfortable, madam. So what I suggested to our monks was to take one name at a time. And take the time, there's no rush in doing this, right? So you take one name, so perhaps it's your mother. And then if you're doing it in English, you can go by the print that we have available. Or if you're doing it in Sinhala, the Mamada Siru Loka Siru Satyo, Sansara Dahe Miditva. So what you have in mind when you say Mamada Siru Loka Siru Satyo is myself and the other person that you have in mind. So every time you're doing this, you're not only building up the power of Arya Maitreya around you, but also on the other person. Reflecting on the fact that there are so many people, so many sentient beings who have come to our help and support and assistance, and this is why we are living the life we are right now. And the thing is, some of them may today no longer be alive. Some of them might have passed on, and some might be in the woeful planes, having been born as spirits, pretas. If you do this now, it's possible that you might not have to resort to doing a Dolospirika. Because if you do it now, chances are, whatever merit they're looking for, whatever blessings they seek from you, you pass it on to them without them even having to ask for it. But one day if you don't do this, they just might come and ask for it. And when they ask for it, chances are they're not going to ask for it nicely. So you might as well do this. So there's lots of benefits to be gained from this. This is why we suggest these things, not just because we need something to say when I sit on this seat. Okay, so I was quite serious when I suggested that. It's an absolutely wonderful thing to do, a really meritorious deed to do. Remember, what did the Buddha say? Ananda, you may offer alms to the Buddha, you may offer alms to the Mahasangha, but the merit that you acquire by practicing Arya Maitreya for one moment, the time it takes to sniff a flower is 100 times more than a huge alms that you offer, dana that you offer to the Mahasangha. Now, how much money do you have to spend on doing what I just asked you to do? Absolutely nothing. All it needs is a few sheets of A4 paper, maybe a pen or a pencil. That's it. And then what you need is your mind. Free merit. Don't let it pass by. Okay, so I'm conscious that time's ticking by. Just one more thing I want to say, and I've been meaning to say this for a few weeks now, so apologies for our organizers who passed on this message to us, but I didn't remember it to mention last week and the week prior to that. I know there are, just as much, ladies and gentlemen, as me taking the trouble and Dasahamdru here, us making the effort to expound this Dhamma, to pass the message of the Buddha to sentient beings all around the world, because as we know, English is the international language of communication. I really don't enjoy sitting down here and doing these sermons. Before sermons, I have to go and prepare, not the Dhamma, but the words that I need to express this Dhamma. Because sometimes, there may be listeners online, non-native Sinhala speakers, to whom I can't just use Sinhala words and it's not going to make sense to them. A lot of, some people used to complain that I used a lot of Pali. So I've stopped doing that as well. Only when I have to resort to it and I can't come up with a word that really conveys that meaning, do I resort to Sinhala or Pali. And sometimes for your own good, because I do consider that you're sat here in front of me and you've taken the trouble to come here. So anyway, it's not just us who take the trouble and go through the effort to expound this. It includes all of you, and among all of you, there are also some who go that extra mile to transliterate these sermons. So what do I mean by that? You type them out. These sermons that get recorded, you take the trouble to record them. Sometimes perhaps you get the audios online, and then you type them out into documents, and then you make them available for reading to a lot of people. Because there may be those who are deaf. If they became deaf, if they went deaf before they listened to the Dhamma, then they're not going to become a Sotapanna. However, if they have some understanding of the Dhamma, at least they may abstain from the unmeritorious deeds. They may engage as much as they can in the meritorious deeds. And at least, perhaps, avoid being born in the woeful plains. So there's absolutely so much to gain. And also, while I was when I was in the UK, what I noticed was that a lot of people really enjoy reading. Much more I think than our people in Sri Lanka. A lot of people always have a book or a magazine or a newspaper in their hands when they're commuting. So if we can make these sermons available in written form, I think there's so much to be gained by doing that. And so that is what some of you, I think, listen to these sermons also online. You take extra trouble, go that extra mile to transliterate these sermons. What I want to tell you is that if there are those among you who would like to get involved, then please express your interest. There's on the Skype group, I think you can express your interest and you can make use of that opportunity. The reason I would encourage you doing that is, one, if you have the spare time to do this, when you listen to a sermon and the reason you're listening to this is to type it out, now you have to listen to it very attentively and very carefully, because you can't miss a word. You can't make your own stuff up. You have to type out exactly what the Swami Wahanse has said in the sermon. So now you're paying absolute attention. And when you're paying attention, things that you didn't understand the first time round are going to become clear. They're going to start to make sense. And sometimes it may be that you have to listen to a sermon 2 or 3 times over But what do I always encourage you to do before you come for the next sermon? At least listen to this sermon once or twice, because there will absolutely be things that didn't absolutely make sense, or didn't make complete sense. But if you listen to it a second or a third time, then you're going to be able to absorb the profoundness that is contained within some of those things. And some of you, it may be that, you fall asleep perhaps maybe halfway through the sermon. It might be just a couple of minutes. But if you take the time to go through the sermon again, leisurely, maybe on your commute, while you're driving, maybe while you're on the bus, on the train, right? If you listen to it, at least, put aside transliteration, at least if you listen to it a second or a third time, then the gain that you're going to get out of it is manifold over. So, for those of you who have the time, I would really encourage you to get involved in that transliteration, because the merit you earn by doing that is immeasurable. I can't express how much meritorious a deed that is. Remember, there are a lot of people out there who still haven't come into our contact. Very few people listen to these sermons. Even the Sinhala sermons, let alone the English sermons. Very few people. But we have a huge potential to get this message out to a lot of educated, intelligent and curious, inquisitive people throughout the world, to whom English is their mother tongue. So if we can get this message out, then more people will listen, more people will engage. Because people out there, they're not idiots. And again, it doesn't matter what beliefs you hold. It doesn't matter whether you're a Christian, or a Jew, or a Buddhist, or a Muslim. It really doesn't matter. Because do we attack any religion? No. Do we attack any beliefs? No. All we talk about is the science behind the Buddhist philosophy. This is a science. Who is allowed to believe in science? Only Christians? Only Buddhists? No. We all make use of science. The Dhamma is to make use of. This is a tool. But to use the tool, you need to first understand the tool. And for that, you need the medium of communication, which is English in this case. So, if any of you have the time to do it, get involved. The merit that you earn is absolutely tremendous. And it might also help with your English. I read up to improve my English because I like doing it. No. I read to improve my English so that I can deliver these sermons better. Not things I do for myself. But this is, I think, my duty to humanity. So perhaps there are young listeners here, young audiences, if they've got time and they are actively engaged in improving their language, then why not listen to a sermon and transliterate it, type it out. Now you're learning your spellings, right? Parents, here's an idea for you. They're learning their spellings, they're learning new words, they're learning ways of expressing ideas. And sometimes, I use idioms and expressions that I've learned when I was in the UK, things that perhaps you don't come across here. So if you have a hope to go and seek pleasure, find happiness in the UK, then perhaps that might come handy one day as well. Sorry, I should really stop mocking you. So there's so much to gain and really nothing to lose if you have some spare time. And to all those who have been actively doing it all up until now, I think there's a huge reward that is acquiring on their behalf. The Dhamma is much like anything else. You get what you give. You will get what you give. So if you give the gift of Dhamma, guess what you're going to get back in return? What? The gift of Dhamma. If you want to receive something, you absolutely have to give it first. Give what you have, you will receive manyfold over. So give as much as you can. And if it's not transliteration and terms you have the time for, perhaps you have a CD that you can give to a friend. Listen to this. Maybe send a link to somebody. Listen to this. See what you think. Let's meet up over a coffee. We'll talk about other matters, but throw in, hey, what did you think about that sermon the other day? And New Year's coming around the corner, so you're going to get a chance to go and visit your neighbors and relations that you're so looking forward to, and find a way to enter the subject. You're creative. I know you are. I don't need to give you ideas for that. So you come up with your own ways of doing that. Perhaps you can come and share your stories. And we'll see what service you have rendered to humanity. Because this is the best service you can render to all humanity. Because all beings are stuck in samsara. Everyone's looking for pleasure where they are never going to find it. Everyone's destitute. Everyone's in despair. Everyone's lost in samsara. Help them. Help and you shall be helped. Okay. So I think with that we'll conclude the sermon. I believe it's Arya Maitri in Sinhala this week, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? English? Okay. So reflect on these words and the meaning behind the word, the essence behind the words. It's not the words that matter, but the meaning and the essence behind them. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of birth, freed from the fire of decay, freed from the fire of illness, freed from the fire of death, freed from the fire of sorrow, freed from the fire of lamentation, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of suffering, freed from the fire of discontentment, freed from the fire of exhaustion, freed from the fire of disappointment, freed from the fire of clinging on to the five aggregates, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the suffering of samsara, freed from the disease of samsara, freed from the fear of samsara, freed from the fire of samsara, freed from the burning of samsara, freed from the sorrow of samsara, freed from the lust of samsara, freed from the clutches of samsara, freed from the flames of samsara, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. The karma worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the karma worlds. The Rupa worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the Rupa worlds. The Arupa worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the Arupa worlds. All worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from all the worlds. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Letting go is the only salvation. May I and all beings let go. Detachment is the only salvation. May I and all beings be detached. Being freed is the only salvation. May I and all beings be freed. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the bondage of lust, freed from the bondage of aversion, freed from the bondage of delusion, freed from the bondage of Mara, healed with the eternal bliss of Nibbana, 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 healed with the eternal bliss of Nibbana. Okay. You know, in that video clip you watched, there were two soldiers at the beginning, weren't there? Did you notice? Two soldiers at the beginning. What happened to the second guy? Did you not wonder through the story? When might he reappear? Did you not wonder? What might have happened to him? No? You did? Attachment is the cause of all mental suffering. You wondered, right? You were looking for an answer, weren't you? What might have happened to him? Attachment is the cause of all suffering. Why were you looking for it? Why were you thinking about that? Why were you wondering? You want to know. Why? Attachment. Sorry, I really should stop mocking you. Okay, right. Let's transfer merits to all those who deserve the merits, and we'll conclude the sermon. First and foremost, let us, once again, as we did at the beginning, take a moment to remind ourselves that it is because of the Supremely Enlightened One, the Perfect One, the Immaculate One, the Unvanquished One, the Undefeated One, the Undefeatable One, the Supremely Enlightened Gautama Samma Sambuddhajan Mahan say this, Gautama Supreme Buddha, that we today have the gift of Dhamma. It is because of his selfless dedication towards the liberation, emancipation of all sentient beings that we have the gift of Dhamma today. Let us also take a moment to reflect and remind ourselves of the Bhikkhu Bhikkhunis, Upasaka Upasikas, who, from the time of the Buddha, memorized the Dhamma and passed it down through their ancestors all the way down to us. Today we have the Tripitaka. It is because of them, it is thanks to them that we have the scriptures for our study, for our perusal, to help us to liberate ourselves from the shackles of samsara. So, may all the merits that we have all acquired today in listening to this sermon and preaching this sermon, and all the merits that you might have gathered today, accumulated today, acquired today in making offerings to the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha and so on, be transferred to those Bhikkhu, Bhikkhunis, Upasaka, Upasikas. If any of them have today been born in the woeful planes, may through the power of these merits they be able to redeem themselves from those woeful planes, be born in the blissful planes. May these merits help them to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of the Mahasangha, which includes the Mahanayakas, the Anunayakas of all the three Nikayas that prevail in Sri Lanka, as well as all the members of the Mahasangha, wherever in the world that they may reside. Also transferring merits to our Guru Swami Vahanse, as well as the other resident monks of this monastery, who make a lot of effort to make these sermons available to you, who make a lot of effort to delivering these sermons, expounding these sermons for the deliverance of all sentient beings. But also let us not forget to transfer merits to reminding ourselves of the service that the monks and nuns of your local temples and your local nunneries have rendered to you throughout your lives. Although you might have come along today to listen to this sermon, perhaps to offer dana and so on and so forth, do not forget for a moment, ladies and gentlemen, that it is those monks and nuns in your local temples and nunneries that have always been by your side. They have always been through thick and thin, through rain or shine, been there to help you, support you and assist you. It is there you send your children for the Hampasal, and through the good times and bad times have always been by your side to offer you guidance, to support you. So may the merits that we have all acquired today be transferred to all those people, men and women that we have just mentioned. May they all be able to rejoice in these merits. May through the power of these merits they be able to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to the Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead that we invited at the start of this sermon. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, reminding ourselves of all those sentient beings, many innumerable sentient beings who will have been at our help, support and assistance throughout our infinitely long journey in samsara. Wherever they may be today, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may these merits help them to redeem themselves and be born in the blissful planes. May through the power of these merits, all those beings born in the blissful planes be able to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all those men and women, just like yourselves, who have made effort and taken the trouble to organize this sermon, organize this event, organize this venue, such that you are able to come along, join these sermons either in person or online, and listen to these in your comfort. Let us take a moment to transfer merits to all of them. Also those who have taken the trouble to organize these events, either by coming along in person or perhaps by extending their support and contribution from wherever in the world they may be. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Also those people just like yourselves who make the effort to propagating these sermons, passing on these sermons for the benefit of all sentient beings, in whatever means, in whatever media, through audio, video, or perhaps by transliterating these sermons for easy reading of all sentient beings. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May through the power of these merits they be able to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also let us take a moment to transfer merits to your parents, be they alive or might have passed on, as well as your teachers in this birth, as well as your parents and teachers in your previous births. It is they who have always been by your side through your formative years, all the way up until this point in your lives where we have become law-abiding citizens of this country. It is through their help and support that you have grown up to become good people, generous people, people to whom the gift of Dhamma can be extended, people to whom the path of Dhamma can be unfolded. It is because of their help and support we have all been able to come along this journey. Perhaps our teachers, perhaps our parents might have been born in the woeful plains by now. Perhaps the reason for that is because they might have sacrificed themselves for our benefit to help us abstain from unmeritorious deeds. If that may be the case, may they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. For any of them having been born in the woeful plains, may these merits help them to redeem themselves from those woeful plains, be born in the blissful plains. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to all those men and women who sacrificed their lives in protecting and preserving our country over a 30-year-old long war that presided in our country. It is because of them that today we have a country in which we can live in peace and harmony despite our differences, despite the differences in our beliefs and practices. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, members of the armed forces as well as members of the police force. If any of them have deceased, and also those friend and foe who were caught up in that 30-year-old long war in Sri Lanka, for all those men and women who are today seeking merit, may the power of the merits that we have all acquired today be transferred to them. May they rejoice in all the merits that we have all acquired today. If any of them have been born in the woeful plains, may these merits help them to redeem themselves from those woeful plains, be born in the blissful plains. May the power of these merits, they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all those men and women who take a leading role in leading this country, in developing this country, and protecting and preserving the peace and harmony of this country. If not for them, ladies and gentlemen, you and I will have to be leading this country. You and I will have to be developing this country. You and I will have to be protecting and preserving this country. So, it is thanks to them that today you and I have the freedom of time. We have the luxury of time to commit ourselves, to dedicate ourselves to practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. It is thanks to their service that we are able to do that, and therefore may all the power of the merits that we have all acquired today be transferred to them. May they all rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may through the power of all the merits that we have all acquired today, in preaching this sermon and listening to this sermon, in making this sermon possible, in making this event a reality, by contributing in any way, shape or form, however small or large it might have been, perhaps all you could offer was a blessing that you passed on genuinely. That is all that is required. For any merit that you have all acquired in making this event possible, may through the power of all those merits we be able to witness on this blessed land the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahatun Vahanses in this very birth itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may through the power of all the merits that we have all acquired today, you and I be able to become one of those Arahatun Vahanses, be able to become one of those Arahat Mehinin Vahanses in this very human birth itself, in the era of the Gautama Samma Sambujanan Vahanse itself. May these merits help us all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. The members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnen midetva, dvesha ginnen midetva, moha ginnen midetva, Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Tunuruwange suvisi ananta mahaguna belen silu loka silu sattayoma Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of desire. May I and all worlds in all worlds be freed from the fires of delusion. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of aversion. May I and all beings attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. May the Noble Triple Gem be with you always. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.